right, good evening, everybody. I'm going to call to order the March 11th Albany Unified School District Board of Education meeting. Back to open session. May I have a roll call of attendance, please?
Student Board Member Chen. Here. Board Member Rosenbaum.
Here.
Board Member Lowe.
Here.
Board Member Black.
Here.
Vice President Maris.
Here.
President Knight.
Here. And for those who would like to participate, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So the board took two actions in closed session this evening. It's with some regret that we accepted the resignation and retirement of Associate Superintendent Hardin, who has been with the district for 6 years now. And the board also accepted a contract addendum to the Associate Superintendent's contract, which I'll read now. At age 54 or older, provided Associate Superintendent of Business Services retires from public education and has been employed by the district for a period of 6 years prior to retirement, she shall be entitled to receive district-paid medical, vision, and dental premiums for Associate Superintendent of Business Services and her spouse, domestic partner, until the end of the month in which the Associate Superintendent of Business Services reaches age 65. Associate Superintendent of Business Services shall be entitled to receive any district early retirement incentive which is available to and upon the same terms as other certificated and or management employees. All right, so the next item is to approve the agenda. Are there any proposed changes, comments? We're going to have a motion.
Did we want to include an item about discussing the community
Yes, I thought we were going to add that.
to the agenda, right? Or were we going to?
We needed to add a
Okay.
process for selection of superintendent.
Right. So an item has come up since the publication of the agenda that we cannot put off, and that's to discuss the process for the final interviews of the superintendent candidates. And we can add that as a discussion item. It would be discussion item B in this case.
It wouldn't have to be an action item?
Oh, and I forgot something else in close. No, well, I don't think it needs to be an
You
action.
may not need to take
We can make agreement on, basically the item is coming to an agreement on how the Community Advisory Board will be put together, who
Right.
should serve on the Community Advisory Board, and how will that run?
Right.
And I've made some recommendations to the.
Right. It doesn't sound like a specific action is required if we agree on.
Because we've
process.
already agreed that there will be a community advisory board made up of staff and parents and community members.
Yeah.
I think that's an agreement. We've already done that.
We've
So-
decided that.
So now it's a process.
It's
that we
just
have to decide.
clarifying the process?
Yes.
Okay,
Right.
that's fine. Okay.
Okay, so that'll be added. With that addition, any other proposed changes or a motion?
Where will that be added?
Item B under review and discussion.
So I'll move the agenda as amended.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So the agenda has been approved, and we can move on to the consent calendar. Items with questions or comments? Anybody on consent calendar items?
Yeah, I have some items I'd like to comment on. I'd like to pull item AB, excuse me.
Just
AB.
comment on it, you mean?
Well, I wanted to add something to the minutes of February 11th. And then item BB, I'm concerned about that item, and then just want to express concerns about that item, and then I have a couple of warrants. One warrant.
Okay.
Did I have a question?
Anyone else? Okay, Alan, go ahead. Your first was the minutes of February 11th.
Okay, the minutes of February 11th on page 37, that was at the end of the career technology report. I did have some comments that I made, which are not in the minutes, and I'd like to repeat those comments, and then I'll give Jackie a copy of them to put in the minutes. Board Member Maris expressed concern that this career technology report only partially satisfies the request for the agenda item to review, discuss, and consider approval of the Build Leads program. Future agenda item to discuss and then requested a future agenda item to discuss and consider approval. So we got the report, but we didn't really complete that agenda item, and I'd like that to be in the minutes.
Yeah, I remember that, so.
All right. Have you sent that to Jackie?
I will.
Okay.
Item BB is on page 52. I'm really concerned about transferring the nurses' contract to the ATA and would like to have some explanation as to why that's being done.
When we originally brought the nurse's job description and salary schedule to you last year, we failed to note that the nurse's position is actually in the ATA contract. So
it is.
we are bringing the salary schedule back into the contract.
Okay, thank you. And then I have a question on page 52, I think, in the warrants. Item 56557. We spent $9,000 on equal opportunity schools, something?
Yes, that's the EOS grant where we are we are trying to equalize the number of participants in our AP classes by ethnicity.
We had a
Very good.
presentation about that. It was
Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah, it was, and I just forgot the title, so, well spent, thank you. That's all I have.
I'll move the consent calendar with the one adjustment.
Okay, I'll second and ask for a roll call, please.
Okay. Do we have a roll call, please?
Student Board Member Chen. Board Member Rosenbaum.
Aye.
Board Member Lowe.
Aye.
Board Member Black.
I need to abstain from check warrants 503-554-921 and 503-55070, otherwise aye.
Vice President Maris.
Aye.
President Knight.
Aye. So that approves the consent calendar with one minor addition to the minutes of February 11th. And we are now ready for our student member report.
Hey. Use this.
So the Albany High Theater Ensemble just performed its annual musical, Guys and Dolls.
It was fantastic.
I agree.
It was. They sold out pretty much every night, and now they're preparing for their student production in the spring. Secondly, this semester, every student in leadership has recently signed a contract promoting student spirit, which includes an agreement to meet the minimum requirement of a 15-hour community service and to wear leadership t-shirts during school events and to fulfill any jobs left for the rest of the semester. Leadership students are also working hard to fundraise for the upcoming prom in order to lower ticket prices. And many Albany students gained national recognition within this past month. Congratulations to El Rosh, Rachel N., and Skylie Morrison, who won honorable mention in the Scholastic Art Awards, which is the longest running and most prestigious recognition program for creative teens in the U.S. And also, congratulations to our 5 finalists for the 2014 National Merit Scholarship:
Wow.
Suzanne Becker, Samantha Chang, Naomi Hamada, Catherine Lee, and Jeffrey Shee.
Hey.
Furthermore, Build On is also holding a fundraiser at Zachary's Pizza tomorrow. They're receiving 15% of all the profit, so long that you print out a flyer on the school website and just bring it with you to Zachary's Pizza. And lastly, on Wednesday, March 26th, some of the leadership students will be participating in We Day California, which is in Oakland. And We Day California is an annual convention, and its goal is to empower young teens in becoming mindful leaders of the community, both locally and globally. And to earn participation into this event, a school or a community member is required to participate in community service both locally and globally. And so in the past, We Day has attracted speakers such as the Dalai Lama, so Albany's extremely excited to participate in this event.
Fantastic. Can you say the name of it? I'm not quite getting it. We Day?
We Day as in W-E Day.
Yeah, it's been on television. I've seen it advertised, yeah.
Great.
I also think I heard that Albany, for the first time, won a state championship in a sport,
Wrestling, I believe.
girls wrestling.
Yeah.
Wow.
Amazing. First state championship we've ever taken.
They're also ranked number 1 in the country,
Really?
and tied with a team in Texas, but we tied for number 1 in the country.
It's
Okay.
amazing.
It's the wrestling team?
The girls.
What?
Girls.
Girls wrestling.
Girls wrestling. The women's
Fantastic.
wrestling team.
That's incredible.
Amazing.
Could
been
you,
in the
could
paper.
you say again where to get that Zachary's flyer?
It could be printed online on the Albany High School website, or they're in the Albany High School main office.
It's in the journal, actually, if you want to read it. I brought it.
All about the wrestling. Yeah,
Oh, the wrestling. Excellent.
Sure.
right on the front there.
Great. All right. Thank you, Chelsea.
Great.
Moving on, we have 2 staff reports this evening. The first one is Safe Routes to School.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to present an update on the Alameda County Safe Routes to School program to the school board. My name is Brett Hondorp. My firm, Alta Planning, is the consultant team lead for the Alameda County Safe Routes to School program. Let me put that in presentation. The Alameda County Safe Routes to School program is a program of the Alameda County Transportation Commission. We have a fairly large team that implements this program out in the field, out in the schools. I do want to take a second to recognize Albany's local site coordinator, Rachel Davidman, who your local teachers and many of you may be familiar with. Rachel is the one kind of out there working directly one-on-one with the schools every day as part of this program. Just some brief history and background on the program. The Safe Routes to School program in Alameda County began way back in 2006 with a grant funding of 4 schools in the North County, and has grown each year to its current form, which is a program of the Transportation Commission that's funded by federal transportation dollars as well as Measure B dollars, and expands now to over 100 schools in the county. The components of Safe Routes to School you are probably familiar with. We refer to them as the 5 E's: education, encouragement, enforcement, engineering, and evaluation. And they really all work hand in hand. This program particularly focuses on the education and encouragement components, but draws in all of the elements of the 5 E's to really make a comprehensive program. And you can see the program's current state here really throughout the county. It started initially really in the North County, focusing on schools up north, but has really broadened out to all areas of the county in its current format. We have 2 forms of delivery of the program. The first is the comprehensive program, and that's the 100 participating schools which receive one-on-one site coordinator assistance, and that's the work that Rachel does here in Albany, and free programming, free incentives, assistance with events. And then other schools who aren't admitted as part of the comprehensive program are eligible for what we call technical assistance, so they can utilize the program's resources. And I do want to highlight particular cooperation here in Albany with this program. Due to the City of Albany receiving a grant, we are able to fund all of the schools within the Albany Unified School District. That's a little unique. We are actually, for other school districts, have to be selective. There's an application process, but because of this ongoing grant that the city runs that goes through 2015, we're able to serve all the schools, and the city provides the bicycle education. So it's a great cooperative effort, in addition to some of the other things I'll talk about for cooperation. Just a summary of kind of our activities, over 100 schools. We had 5 schools participating here in Albany, all 5 of your schools, and delivering several hundred events countywide. And you can see this chart kind of summarizes the different activities and events that each school is participating. So you guys have a very active participation in this program, as I'm sure you're aware. We have 3 main events that we launch each year. The first is in the fall in October. That's International Walk and Roll to School Day. The second is in March now, actually, the Golden Sneaker Contest, which ends this week. It's the first 2 weeks of March. And the last will be Bike to School Day in May, which corresponds with the Bike to Work Day that happens in the region. So those are kind of our 3 big focus events throughout the school year. And then we maintain the program activities with various ongoing smaller events and encouragement assemblies, the bike rodeos, supporting walking school buses, and our bike mobile. And I'll just kind of run through these. Countywide, we had really close to 100 schools participating in International Walk and Roll to School Day in the fall. Over 20,000 students. All of your schools participated. It's kind of a theme with Albany is really the high amount of participation, which is wonderful here. Golden Sneaker Contest. You have 4 of your schools participating, and there will be the county runs a platinum sneaker contest, so looking countywide at the school with the highest achievement, the best increase over their prior year mode split, number of kids walking and biking, we look to award a platinum sneaker. So we'll be looking at who that winner is this year. Last year it was McKinley Elementary in San Leandro. And then looking forward to the Bike to School Day event on May 8th, and hoping for an increase over the 65 schools we had participating last year. One feature of our program that's had a lot of interest is the bike mobile, and this is the mobile bike repair van that we have that goes out and visits schools and community centers. The bike mobile visited Albany High in the fall. We have visits planned at Albany Middle and Ocean View this spring, and we really see the results of you can see the numbers there in terms of the number of bikes repaired, but we do before and after counts at the bike racks when the bike mobile visits to see what's the result. Are we getting our desire here to get bikes fixed and see more children riding them? And we are seeing bike rack counts increasing over 70% in the counts we're doing after a bike mobile visit. So it shows that there are students who may have that bike that's been in their garage. It has a flat tire. Brakes aren't adjusted. The bike mobile can fix those basic repairs, can give them some information about local bike shops they can use in the future, and kind of gets them back rolling on that bike. So I won't go through all of kind of the highlights. We've been doing this presentation for all around school districts in the county, and most of them have a couple of bullets. So you guys, kind of are the high achievers here, and that's wonderful. A couple of things I'll just highlight. The weekly walk and roll days at Cornell, that's wonderful. We usually start these walk and roll to school days kind of, there's the one in October. Some schools just do the one a year, and then we try to get schools to consider a monthly date. And when you're down to a weekly, you know that you're really succeeding. You know that people have really, your school community has really bought in to that program, and it's really achieving, and you've integrated it into their regular activities. So that's wonderful. We've got the walking school buses. That's one of our more effective programming in terms of the outcomes. We find that schools that participate in a walking school bus, so that's where you have an escort, parent or volunteer escorts taking groups of children. Again, they're the ones that tend to have the better outcomes in terms of increasing walking and biking rates and reducing that single family vehicle rate. And then some just other activity of your green team at the middle school and your high school program. Albany High is one of our high school pilot programs. We have 6 schools in the county that are pilots of this high school program, and it's a really unique, one of the few programs in the nation that does safe routes to school programming at the high school level. And so Albany High is one of the participants and has been very active in working with our high school coordinator. We have a dedicated high school coordinator that works throughout the county on these, and working with the student leadership to kind of help them develop their own programming. It's really a student-led, unlike the elementary where our site coordinators kind of lead. The high school is very much a student-led type of programming, working with their leadership groups. And what we're seeing is that the schools that have the greater levels of participation, more events, are the ones that are more successful. And we're seeing that increased participation over the year's trend. And we're seeing that the mode split, the number of students using active modes, which are walking, biking, skateboarding, scooters, and shared modes, which are carpooling and transit, we're seeing that trend go up, and we're seeing the drive alone trend go down. And this is county-wide data. So we're going in the right direction. It's slow and steady. It's not a huge jump, but that actually gives us confidence that we are using good data, and that with these behavioral change type of programs, you're not going to see necessarily really quick increases. It's that slow and steady change that we're after. Probably somewhat obviously, the schools that have shorter commute distances tend to see greater walking rates. So those with more neighborhood-focused enrollment areas see more rates. This chart, there's just a lot to look at, but shows mode split by all the school districts. The green modes are those shared modes, shared and active modes, and the red shows the drive alone. You can see Albany way over there on the left. You guys are the champs of the whole county. You have the highest active modes and the lowest single occupant modes. So you're really doing a great job, and compared to the county average, you have 47% walking, biking. The countywide average is about 30%, so you're well above that. And family vehicle average is about 50, and you're only at about 30. So you can see there really, really good results. And we do put a lot of emphasis on the data collection and the evaluation. We want to see the results of this program, and we want to see how we can adapt and change and evolve the programming as we go to achieve results. So we do these tallies. We appreciate the school districts and the schools themselves giving our team access as part of this program to conduct these student tallies and do parent surveys occasionally, so we can collect this data. We can learn how the students are traveling. We can learn more about the barriers to walking and biking and what kind of programming is effective as part of this. And so hand tallies were last done in the fall and will be done again next fall. The final thing I want to mention is the walking audits. So this is that engineering piece of the program, the infrastructure piece. We work very closely with not just the school district and the schools, but with the cities to go out and assess infrastructure conditions around the school sites. We did a walk audit of Ocean View Elementary in October. Developed an engineering plan, which was with the help of city staff to look at some potential changes to the pickup drop-off areas, to the traffic circulations, to the pedestrian and bicycling infrastructure near the school. And these types of plans really provide the city with opportunities to pursue additional funding to implement that work. So there's a statewide active transportation funding program, which is going to be out in about a week with applications due in late May. So this is something the city could consider using to apply for that funding. And just wrapping up, in terms of the future of this program, moving beyond its current kind of federal transportation funding, there is a Measure B reauthorization that will be on the ballot in November for Alameda County, and this program will be part of that in addition to the other transit, BART, and other enhancements that the Alameda County Transportation Commission is looking to have funded. Safe Routes to School is a large component of the types of livability programs, transportation programs that are being supported. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any specific questions. And Rachel Davidman, who many of you know, is here there, and just wanted to make sure to introduce her as your local site coordinator. So thanks.
Would you mind going back to slide 15? I believe that's the Earth Club that we have in the background, and I see on the far left our Earth Club coordinator, Ms. Fujiwara, so I want to thank you since she's in the audience. Nice picture.
Questions from the board? Alan?
So I have a question concerning Measure B. We tried an extension a couple of years ago, and I don't believe it passed. What are you doing differently so that we get this much-needed transportation bill passed?
You know, I'm not, I don't work for Alameda County Transportation Commission, so I should probably not speak to the specifics of that, other than to say we are including activities or programs like Safe Routes to School, which have been shown to be an important part of transportation programming in the county as part of that. But not being a representative of the agency itself, I should probably not say much more than that.
But you've done a very nice job of promoting Measure B.
Yeah, I mean, this is normally this presentation is actually given by an agency representative, so he would be the one who could sort of normally answer that. I think we just wanted to put out there that as we look to expand this program, right now we're at about 1/3 of the county schools, about 100 schools of 200 some, close to 300. We'd like to see the program continue to expand, and so in order to do that, likely there will need to be its inclusion in a Measure B type program. The federal funding, we don't know. It's uncertain what the future of that federal transportation funding that currently funds it will be after this program expires in 2015.
And then when I look at the graph on page 19, Albany is a very walkable city. I think you need to recognize we have an advantage over some of the larger.
You do.
I think
but
we need to recognize it well.
So is
and
Berkeley.
continue
So
to
is Berkeley,
improve.
though, and I think a little healthy competition is nice amongst our county cities, and we don't show this to. I mean, for you guys, you're already doing great, and we want to just show the comparison to the county average. It's part of
Sure,
showing
that's
that data,
fine.
and there's certainly there's infrastructure benefits that you have just in the way that Albany developed, but you can see this walk audit we did at Ocean View. There's a list of 15 or so things that we found right around that school that we think the city can do better and help to improve that safety.
And we've been talking about a number of those already.
Right.
So I appreciate what I believe Safe Routes to Schools provided the improvements at around Marin School too, with the extra traffic lights. I know.
Yeah,
The
countywide.
city was involved in that, and the school district supported it.
Okay, yeah, countywide, I think the program through walk audits like this has obtained close to $3 million in capital funds to build various improvements around the county.
Well, thank you for all you're doing.
Absolutely.
Other comments or questions? I had one thing that jumped out at me that I just wanted to mention was that it's actually on number 18 up there, that you get a fair amount of walking if it's a quarter mile or less. But when you go just above that to a half mile to a quarter mile, it falls in half.
It does.
And I'm just thinking a kid can walk a half a mile in 10 minutes or so. Why do you think it falls off so fast? I mean, the rest of the numbers gradually trail.
Yeah. Oh, human nature. We that's just one of the things we try to focus on is figuring out exactly what that is. Some of it just comes down to convenience. Even if you're a half mile away and it seems so logical, that's a 10-minute walk. If the parent's already driving to work, it's just easier to drop the child on the way. And so that's something that that's one of our challenges is how can we maybe flip that around a little and convince parents that the quality time spent in that 10-minute walk, even if you have to walk 5 or 6 minutes back, is well worth that investment and saves you getting caught up in that traffic that's frequently going to take you 10 minutes to get out of when you drive in front of the school. So,
Are there comments or questions from the audience? Please come on up so the folks at home can hear the question.
It's more of a comment than a question. It just occurred to me that what he was saying about parents dropping their kids off. One thing that I've noticed at all of the schools I've worked at is that it's a very hazardous environment in front of the school right at the time when school starts. And it seems like one thing that might help ameliorate that is to encourage people to maybe do sort of a halfway measure, and instead of driving all the way up to the school, take their kids partway and drop them off a quarter mile
Yeah.
from school or half a mile from school and let them walk the rest of the way. Because at the high school, and I know this happens at all the other schools in the morning, it's a mess. And kids are late because they're sitting in the car in a traffic jam less than a quarter of a mile from school.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, maybe in addition to walking school buses, we need drop-off zones where people could be encouraged to do this sort of part-way measure. And that would shorten the walk. It would allow for the kids to get a little exercise, and it might increase safety around the school zone.
Great suggestion.
Thank you. Good idea. Anything else? Well, thanks very much. Really appreciate your coming tonight, and
Yeah.
continue the good work.
Thank you all.
All right, that takes us, we have a second staff report this evening, which is athletics safety.
And our director is here this evening, Zeke Lopez.
Great.
Zeke, did you have a handout?
I do. Let me just pass those around.
It's going to be passed down to him.
Great. So I just wanted to thank Superintendent Stevenson and the school board for giving me this opportunity to speak this evening. My presentation tonight is focused around athletic safety. And I just want to start off by saying that over the last year and a half, some of our primary focuses have been, one, to increase the safety of our student athletes, and two, to mitigate the liability of Albany Unified School District with regards to athletics. So that those have been our primary focuses over the last year and a half. And so I have a few questions tonight that I thought I would try to answer for you. The first question is, what are we currently doing to educate parents and athletes about concussions? And I think that is the hot topic around high school sports, college sports, even professional sports. And so I thought I would start with answering that question. The first thing that we're doing is that, and this is what you have in front of you, the North Coast Section concussion policy. All parents and athletes are required to read and agree to the North Coast Section concussion policy, and this policy is available on the Albany High School website. And so students are not allowed to participate in athletics unless they and their parents have signed off on this policy. And this policy informs parents and athletes of the following. The first thing that it does is it provides an in-depth definition of what a concussion is. And then it goes on to discuss symptoms of concussions. The third thing that it addresses is it talks about signs that can be observed by parents, teammates, teachers, coaches, when someone has a concussion. It also discusses what can happen if a concussion is not properly treated, and it goes into great detail with regards to that. And it also talks about what to do if you think you have a concussion. And so we feel like this is definitely a good base or foundation for our parents, our students, our coaches, even teachers, for that matter. Another thing that we do to educate the community as far as our coaches are concerned is all Albany High School coaches take an online course through the National Federation of High Schools, and it's entitled Concussion in Sports. And so every coach, before they're allowed to step out on the field or onto the court, they have to be certified through this program. And in this course, our coaches learn about the impact of sports-related concussion that can have on our athletes, how to recognize a suspected concussion, the proper protocols to manage a suspected concussion, and steps to help our athletes return to play safely after experiencing a concussion. So we feel very comfortable that our coaches know what the signs are, what to look for, what to do when they suspect that a player may have a concussion, and where to go after that. Concussions. So what do we do when we suspect, when a coach suspect that an athlete may have a concussion? Well, there's a specific protocol that everyone follows when we feel like one of our athletes may have a concussion. Below are the current steps taken. If it happens during a game or at a practice, every athlete is sent directly to Kelly Adams, who is our on-site athletic trainer, and she evaluates them. That's the first step that's taken. If it happens off-site or if it's after the hours that Kelly has, if she's gone home already, then parents are notified and advised to see a doctor. Whenever any coach or anyone suspects that one of our athletes may have a concussion, they are never allowed to return to the practice field or court until they have been cleared by a medical professional. So even if it wasn't proven that they had a concussion, just the fact that a coach or someone suspected that they had one, they are never allowed to come back to play or practice until they've been cleared by a doctor. With regards to football, because I know that's probably one of the hot topics that everyone's wondering about, some of the steps that we've taken over the last year and a half to improve the safety of our football players is in the spring of 2013, what we did was we purchased new Rawlings NRG Impulse lightweight helmets for both JV and varsity teams. And I wanted to give you a comparison of what our previous inventory of helmets was and then comparing that to our new inventory. So if you look at our old helmet inventory, it was a Shut Advantage helmet. And all helmets are rated, and those helmets received a 2-star rating by the Virginia Tech School of Biomedical Engineering and Sciences. And basically that is a adequate rating. They're based from 5 being the highest all the way down to not recommended. And our previous inventory of helmets up until this fall had a 2-star rating. Our new helmet inventory is a Rawlings NRG Impulse lightweight helmet, as I previously stated, and that is a 4-star rating. And just to give you some facts, our athletic trainer, Kelly Adams, keeps statistics on how many students she sees, what types of injuries that she's treating, and by sport. So they're categorized by sport. So in 2012, with our old inventory of helmets, we had a total of 11 athletes suffer from a mild to moderate concussion during the football season. This past fall, in 2013, we had a total of 4 athletes suffer from a mild to moderate concussion during football. So you can see that there's a drastic improvement. Now, I will say that there is...
Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt. Yeah. Is that just football or all sports?
Just football.
Just football.
Just football. While there's no statistical evidence to prove that this decrease in concussions was a direct result of the new helmets, what we believe is that we are providing our football players with the safest equipment available to high school athletes.
What's the life of one of those helmets?
It really varies on the use.
Okay.
And every year what we have to do, all the helmets that have been used have to be reconditioned and recertified. Okay. So we outsource those helmets every spring, and they get tested for safety. And if they're still considered in good condition, they're reconditioned, recertified, but if they're not, they're sent back to us and rejected, and we can no longer use them. So it really just depends on the use.
Thank you.
So it could last 1 year or 10 years?
I'm sorry?
So the helmet could last 1 year or 10 years?
Absolutely. You know, it really depends on who's using it, what position they're playing, those types of things.
The key thing is that you're getting them checked annually, which is great.
Every year. They have to be recertified. Another thing that we're doing to increase not only the safety of our football players, but just athletes in general. One thing that we're doing is in the fall of 2014, Albany High School will add a strength and conditioning coach to our athletic staff. And just want to talk quickly about some of the benefits of having an on-site strength and conditioning coach for all of our athletes. The first thing is it would decrease occurrence of injuries in athletes, including stabilization in the neck area to help prevent concussions. It will decrease lost time from injuries in athletes, so they won't miss as much practice or games due to minor or insignificant injuries. Increase sports performance and ability to compete at a higher level. And it would provide our students with customized strength training programs and supervision for all athletes. Just some comparison. This year, we had one of the strength and conditioning coaches from Cal Berkeley work with our boys basketball program on a volunteer basis. So he is a nationally certified strength and conditioning coach. So he started working with our boys basketball program this time last year. So during the boys basketball season, during the 2012-13 season, we had 1 concussion, 14 ankle injuries, 6 knee injuries, and several insignificant minor injuries. During this current basketball season, we had 0 concussions, only 1 ankle injury, 3 knee injuries, and then obviously several minor injuries. And so you could see that there was a drastic decrease in injuries between one season and the next, just from having worked with a strength and conditioning coach. And we feel like that'll happen across the board with all of our athletic teams if we have an on-site strength and conditioning coach. And we think we'll see the numbers drop significantly for all of our programs next year after having spent time working with the strength and conditioning coach. Are there any questions, comments, concerns? I figured this would take up most of the time.
All right, well, Pat, go ahead.
So about approximately how long did the volunteer strength and conditioning coach work with the basketball team? Like 1 hour a week for the season, or
Typically, well, during the off season,
it was off-season training, I see.
correct. During the off season, it was 3 to 4 days a week for an hour and a half a day. And then throughout the season, it's only 2 days a week for an hour a day. And what you're doing during the season is you're maintaining your strength, your mobility, those types of things.
So about how many weeks were they doing that strength and conditioning prior to starting the season?
They did it all from March all the way through to November.
May I just say thank you very much. The statistics are very impressive in, watching out for the safety of the athletes. I feel like they are going to be able to compete, and the decrease in injury is really significant. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And like I said, one thing that we're seeing is from working with the strength and conditioning coach, our boys basketball team for the first time, and I'm not sure how long, brought home a league championship.
That's right.
And that isn't something that's happened in a long time. And so I think it's going to help our students to perform at a higher level as well, while increasing safety. It seems like a win-win for our student athletes.
It's been a long, long, long time. Can I ask a follow-up question?
Definitely.
You said we were hiring our own strength and conditioning
Correct.
person. How many hours will that person be working?
That person will be working between 15 and 18 hours a week.
Great.
And that'll happen throughout the after-school time, so between 3 and roughly 6 p.m.
And our athletic trainer, how many hours does that person work?
We pay her for 15, but she's typically on site for about 20 to 25 hours.
So she's basically there every day, part of the day.
Yes.
That's great.
And I think it's going to give her more time to treat the injuries, because right now she really is backed up. And so as we bring on the strength and conditioning coach, I think she'll be seeing less and less students. And so when they do come to her, she can give them more attention to treat their injuries.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that. I wasn't aware that we had a trainer on staff, and it can be a headache when you don't. Literally a headache.
Alan, did you?
Alan, do you have a question?
So you didn't, I don't remember seeing statistics for the wrestling team. How are they doing on injuries?
The wrestling team, I didn't look specifically at those statistics, just because I was really focusing on football, and then I wanted to look at the statistics for boys basketball just to compare what it's like with the team that was working with an athletic trainer.
But I think they could really benefit from the trainer weight
Absolutely.
Instructor as well.
Absolutely.
I could see also that you want to focus on the traditional contact sports, where there has traditionally been more concern with concussion and That's
No,
what
they get a
would
lot
be
of,
great.
wrestling has a lot of potential for concussion.
Absolutely. You know, and in talking to the strength and conditioning coach that's been working with our boys, one thing that he says is he's convinced that our girl teams would benefit the most from working with a strength and conditioning coach.
Oh, absolutely, I think so.
And since wrestling is such a big thing in Albany, you know, our coaches have always done a lot of conditioning
Yeah, they have.
all year long, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I had a question too. Actually, thank you very much for that. And I'm really glad to see some of the evidence of declining injury.
Absolutely.
That's really good. You know, one of the things that comes out when people, so recently when people have looked at concussions, is that there can also be cumulative effect of the subconcussive events. In other words, things that don't look like a concussion at the time, but if you're on the front line, you know, year after year, you're crashing your helmet into the opposing team or whoever you're scrimmaging with, and that can accumulate, and there seems to be some evidence for that. So I'm wondering if there are guidelines for, say, the football team regarding how they handle practice or what kind of contact is allowed to try to minimize that risk.
One thing that I know that our coaches focused on this year was minimizing the contact at practice, because they're going to get so much in the game on Friday that, you know, they really have minimized the contact that students are getting during practice. So there's a lot of, you know, non-helmet time, non-impact time during the practice, during practices during the week. And so that's something that we've really tried to emphasize with our football coaches, is trying to minimize the amount of contact that our football players are involved in throughout the week.
How does that carry over to the games then? Do you find that other teams are on the same page with that, or does it get much more physical at the games?
You know, one thing that I know is that a lot of coaches over the last couple of years are really, you know, there's always at least 1 to 2 non-contact practices per week, and so that's kind of across the board what a lot of coaches are doing these days because of the hot topic of concussions in football.
Right. So you find that other coaches they come to a game and they're willing to take it easy, or they're
as far as
kids,
game,
they're
no,
gonna go
absolutely
at it,
not.
right? Yeah.
You know, a lot of it is just really focusing on practices, minimizing the contact, and then also a lot of coaches are teaching. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the heads up coaching, where they're really teaching football players how to tackle with their head up as opposed to going with their head down. And so that seems to minimize concussions as well, and that's what a lot of coaches are doing these days.
Thank you. Yeah. Are there questions or comments from the public audience, folks?
Thank you,
So
Zeke.
thank
Great.
you. Yeah,
Thank
thanks
you.
very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Good news.
Yeah, good news.
All right. Great, so that brings us then to the public comment period. We ask that folks, if they'd like to speak, come on up and do so. We'd like folks to keep their comments to 3 minutes or less. And ideally, if somebody's already said what you want to say, to just say, I agree. And board bylaws kind of limit the comment period for any one topic to about 20 minutes. That's possible to extend, but just in general, that's a good guideline given the amount of time, the amount of stuff we have on the agenda tonight. So if anybody has something to say that's not on the agenda, come on up.
Good evening, Superintendent Stevenson and members of the Albany School Board. My name is Rich Ritchie, and I am a teacher from Albany Middle School. I have been teaching at AMS for 9 years and have 2 of my own children currently at Albany High School. I am accompanied by my AMS colleagues here tonight and welcome their support. I'm here speaking to you regarding the current open position of Curriculum and Instruction Director and our concerns regarding the composition of the interview panel for this position. It is our understanding that at this time there are no teachers represented on this interview panel, and we feel strongly that teachers should have representation on such a critical position that directly involves teachers and students. Teachers are, in fact, the implementers of this district's mission and take community standards to create real, everyday instructional magic for our students. It makes sense for teachers to be on this interview panel, as we are one of the major stakeholders and have a much clearer awareness of the position's impact on sites. Decisions that will need to be worked on together as a team includes the C&I director and teachers across this district from elementary, middle, and high school. The wealth of curriculum knowledge and strategies to implement new curriculum ideas, such as Common Core and assessment tools such as Smarter Balance, by our Albany teachers cannot and should not be overlooked at such an important time in selecting a curriculum and instruction director. Teacher representation on this interview panel should perhaps be comprised of department heads and instructional leadership members from a representation of school sites here in Albany. The ability for our teachers to serve on this interview panel is paramount to the notion that it takes an Albany village to prepare and implement new curriculum and instructional practices that will further develop and challenge and prepare our Albany school students. Hence, I urge that teachers be on this interview panel for the curriculum and instruction director, as we are a key component when it comes to taking master curriculum and instructional plans and turning them into everyday reality for our students. Our input as interview panel members will only enhance accountability of the qualities that this position requires. This candidate should demonstrate proven leadership and team collaboration skills that will serve our district, teachers, and students of Albany. Thank you for listening to our requests, and we sincerely hope that you consider our recommendations and have department head teachers from each school site on this interview panel for the current open position of Curriculum and Instruction Director.
Can I ask a follow-up?
All right, I think we have a question.
I
think we have a question.
Clarification question.
Clarification.
Yeah. That's not the only position that's open now, but it's the only one that you think the teachers should have a say in?
No, we've had meetings within our school sites. I know at middle school that we've talked about what are the qualities for a principal, since we know those positions are open as well, and teachers should be a part of that as well. And they are, yeah.
Okay, what about other district office level positions, say chief business officer?
I think just as a team collaborative approach, it would be nice to have teacher representation. I think we're farther removed from a financial officer position, but I think in team spirit, it would be nice to have teachers who do actually deal with everyday budget issues.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else to speak on matters not on the agenda?
Good evening. My name is Annie Alcott, and I teach second grade at Cornell. I stand here tonight with my colleagues in asking that we have teacher representation on the search committee for the Director 3 position. I realize our colleagues at the middle school also spoke to this, but I think there are some points that bear emphasis. This position is otherwise known as the Director of Curriculum and Instruction. Let's just parse that for a moment in terms that are simplified and yet accurate. The Director of Curriculum and Instruction. Director, someone who leads, guides, provides expertise and support for those who work for and with her or him. Curriculum, the content that is taught. Instruction, the teaching. If you look around this room, you're going to see a lot of teachers. Yes, I love a packed house. Teachers who, if in truth be told, have better things to do than be here on a Tuesday night. But we're here. We're here because there's a simple and critical issue before us. There's an interview committee that the district has set up to search for the new Director of Curriculum and Instruction. Many stakeholders are on that committee. Administrators who work alongside the new Director of Curriculum and Instruction, the Director of Technology, who will work undoubtedly closely with the new Director of Curriculum and Instruction, the head of the custodial staff, who I infer will work closely with the new Director of Curriculum Instruction, and I'm sure there are others. But who's missing? The people who are waiting to be led, guided, provided with expertise and support, directed. Only the people who choose, plan, and design what is taught, curriculum. Only the people who do the actual teaching, instruction. We are the teachers. I'd argue that along with our students, we are the ones whom the position of Director of Curriculum and Instruction is meant to most directly benefit and influence. And yet, we're being left off the search committee. Every single day, we are entrusted with the achievement of every single student in this district. And yet, you can't trust us or respect us enough to place teacher representatives on the search committee. It's unreasonable, and honestly, it's somewhat insulting. Along with my esteemed colleagues, I ask that the board reconsider the composition of the search committee for the Director of Curriculum and Instruction and include teacher representatives. We feel that it is unprofessional to do otherwise. Thank you.
Carrie Dunnigan, co-president ATA. Teachers of AUSD are extremely disappointed that we are being excluded from participating on the interview team for the Director of Curriculum and Instruction. First of all, this is in conflict with our strategic plan. For example, Strategy 3, Communicating and Leading Together, which has as its second goal, making proactive and effective decisions, identify and improve district and site operation protocols for effective operations, and to review and refine decision-making protocol with staff input and communicate to all staff. It has been argued that past precedence is guiding this position. Relying on past precedents, however, doesn't take into account current practices, expectations, and requirements. Leading these changes in practice are the adoption of Common Core standards, the local control funding formula, and of course, the strategic plan itself, all of which place greater accountability and demands on the part of teachers to be involved in more of the decisions that affect our students. As you know, teachers are committed to the high level of programs and the quality of education AUSD is able to provide for our students. Because the Director of Curriculum and Instruction position has a profound impact on all teachers, curriculum, and thus students, we would like fair ATA representation on the interview committee. We are a critical stakeholder group that has keen knowledge of the educational needs of our students, in addition to the professional needs of our colleagues. We work with students on a daily basis and have demonstrated a long-term investment in our community. As history has shown, teachers remain dedicated to the district for many years, while administration has shown a higher turnover. To say you value our increased involvement and input set forth in the strategic plan, but then exclude us in this crucial decision-making process feels hypocritical, especially when those who are being included in the decision will feel little, by comparison, impact from this decision. The Director of Facilities, Director of Technology, etc. If we are going to treat the strategic plan as a living, breathing document, then AUSD decisions should reflect this, and we should be given a seat at this table.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to speak on matters not on the agenda? All right. In that case, we will move on. Thank you for coming. All right. We have a review and discussion item, which was Board of Education goals. And we had in our last open session that dealt with the governance calendar and goals. We discussed the possibility of combining board goals and district goals, but we didn't reach a final decision on that. If we had, I think we probably would have dropped this item tonight if we had decided to actually combine those and discuss those items together. But since we haven't, we left it on because this is about the time of year when we would do that.
You know, I don't have the exact same memory. I thought the discussion was that we would talk about board goals and clarify that some of them might overlap or might lead into district goals later, but that there would be some goals that would be more specific to the board. Does anyone else remember?
That was part of the discussion. I don't think we came to a conclusion.
Okay, so that's kind of what I was saying, that, okay.
Maybe that's the discussion that we need to have now. So we've allotted a little time. We should decide whether we'd like to have our own separate goals or just merge it with district goals. And I mean, I would open it just by saying I did review our goals from last year.
Could you read them?
Could I read them?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I actually found it very useful that
Yeah.
Jackie
Jackie
sent them to me.
around.
And
Would you please?
that'd be
Oh,
would
yeah,
be
that'd be
great.
great. You might get there quicker than I do,
I don't think some of us can read that, but you could read it at least.
but I can read it, yeah. 'Cause
Yeah,
here they are.
But we appreciate, saying,
So we had 4 items, which are coming up now.
They're there.
they're there.
They're there.
We just-
Oh, there they are up here. You got it faster than I did. So,
Can read this better.
oh, no, actually, this is better,
can't.
unless I put my reading glasses on.
I can read it if no one else can.
So budget restoration priorities, the first one. With input from district stakeholders, set short and long-term financial priorities for restoring personnel and programs that have been cut. So we talked a lot about priorities. We've had some of those discussions. These priorities might include new programs or innovations.
I'd like to observe that I don't believe we have done that.
I was thinking the exact same thing.
We did discuss priorities, and we had planned to complete that discussion this fall. So we had 3 meetings last spring, and we had planned to complete it this fall, I believe.
Right, but we
We
I
never
think
did.
we're stalled because we actually don't know what
We
monies
don't know
we
what
will
the
have to
budget
spend
is.
until the funding formula comes
Yeah.
through.
Yeah,
I remember
but-
that discussion as well.
Right, but the point was we were supposed to set priorities,
Yes.
not specific dollar amounts.
But
Well,
anyway,
well, anyway, maybe let him read
let
all
me
of
just
them.
go through these, because the other thing I'd observe about that is that's not specifically a board goal as distinct from the district. I think that we I could see that as a district goal, even if
Okay.
it's mainly the board's role.
I
It's
could
a
argue
district.
that, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'll give you a chance to.
Why don't you go through all
So
of
the
them?
second one is facilities master plan, develop a facilities master plan for district that includes short and long-term goals and so on. I don't think I need to read all the details there, but that is largely done. And taking into consideration the parcel tax expiring, so we're continuing to work on that. The third one is achievement gap, identify a minimum of 2 research-based strategies appropriate for our student population that would effectively address the achievement gap that exists in Albany schools and begin implementation. I don't think we've done that.
I think we've kind of started on it.
Kind of
but
started.
I would like to see more.
EOS, I think, would be one.
I was thinking that too, but anyway, maybe we can talk about that after we go
Yeah.
through the full.
And then the fourth one, improve communication, regularly disseminate board meeting highlights as one strategy for improving communication between the Board of Education and the department's stakeholders,
right,
which we now regularly do.
I'd say irregularly, but
Irregularly.
Irregularly.
What do you mean?
Almost
I have
always.
been writing them meeting after. I'm counting how many I'm
Almost
writing, how many
always.
the rest of you are writing.
well, then we should set up a rotating schedule and make
So,
sure we
I
stick
mean,
to
I
it.
think we're doing it fairly regularly.
Okay, I'm
Jackie
not
keeps us in
seeing
line.
them.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm supposed to write the one for this one, so somebody keep track of me.
Okay.
Jackie gives a gentle nudge. Don't
So-
worry.
Anyway, I guess I'm saying that all of these are things that we do as a governance team and even as a larger, board plus superintendent plus staff. Because I mean, if you look at these things, achievement gap efforts, what has been done, very much driven by the superintendent. Facilities master plan, although we're sort of participating in that all together, but also, it's not like the board does that without anyone else. And so I'm just seeing them as district goals, but I'll let others say what they want to say.
Okay, I'll give you my opinion on them, since that's what I'm getting all these big bucks to do. Budget restoration priorities. I think that we were very good when our budget was being cut at setting our priorities and the order in which we were going to cut things. And we have been remiss in not doing that for the restoration of funds.
I agree.
And I think that is definitely a board responsibility. It's not a district responsibility. The board does not hire people. The board does not implement programs, but the board sets policy and priorities. And that's what we should be doing, is setting priorities.
I agree, although we can ask the staff to help us.
Absolutely.
For example, to get access to surveys and different
course.
data so that
Right.
we can, yeah.
Of course, to do our job.
Absolutely right.
Number 2, facilities master plan. I think that is a district goal. I think we had board participation on the facilities master planning committee. And we had a little board pushing to get it underway, which was appropriate, but that is a district goal and was directed and largely carried out by staff, and I think that was appropriate. Achievement gap, this is a case where I think as a board goal, it's a little bit off target because the specific strategies we should be following seems to be a staff responsibility, but it certainly should be a board responsibility to make sure it happens. Yeah. So the board responsibility could just be to require periodic reports, staff reports.
Right, and we'd have to connect it to number 1, because if we're going to
Yes.
have those expectations, then in the prioritizations, we
Exactly.
not only need to think about the kinds of feedback that we get from stakeholders, but also the fact that if this is a priority for us, which it seems to be, that even if it's not brought up among
Very good
other,
point.
larger groups of stakeholders, it's something that we hold to and would need to give resources to.
I agree completely.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Excellent.
At least some of them.
Okay,
And as far as improved communication goes, what we're talking about there specifically is board members communicating what happens at board meetings, and that is a board responsibility and something we need to be sure to.
And I think we're
continue to-
doing an adequate job, although we might need to be a little clearer about rotation.
I think we have a ways to go in terms of finding ways to disseminate the information, because just putting things on the e-trees just doesn't get to everybody. We have to keep looking for other ways, other types of social media, whatever is available to get the word out. But that's not specific to board communication. That's for district communication in general.
It's actually, it's community communication. I mean, there aren't a lot of really solid ways to communicate internally within this community. And it's going to be a problem. Less and less people read Albany Journal, and less people are looking
At the patch.
right now.
That's right.
So,
So
right. Anyway, that's my
we need
take
to,
on
but I'd like to brainstorm that.
So are each of us going to speak? And then
If you'd like, yeah. Go ahead, Alan.
anyone else want to speak? Okay. Budget restoration priorities. Last spring, we were given significant amount of information from the sites and the priorities that they consider that need to be restored when the money comes in. I think we have a lot of good material to work with. Class size reduction was a big item from the elementary schools. Facilities master plan, clearly we've gone a long way on that. We have the facility master's plan. Got a lot of input from the community as well as teachers and other staff. It's a very, very valuable document, one that we can use in the future to, we've already talked about improving providing seismic retrofit for Marin School and Ocean View. And recognize that we have some HVAC improvements at almost all sites to do, and I think those are, we've started accomplishing those, I believe. I've looked at the warrants, and we're paying people to do that. The achievement gap, I've been concerned about that and expressed my concerns. I think Paul is right that it's a staff job to come up with the strategies, or not the strategies, but the implementation of the strategies for addressing achievement gap.
I think the strategies as well.
Yeah, but I think it's up to the board to suggest things too and to take input from the community. If you have parents that are dissatisfied with the education opportunities, particularly if they have students that are in the achievement gap, I think the board has a responsibility to represent the public.
Well, we would certainly listen to and get those ideas, as well as look at successful practices in other districts, research-based practices, and we would take those all into account. But it would be the staff that would be making those decisions and giving recommendations to us.
We have to realize that the least represented parents who come to the board or to PTAs are those from the groups that are in the achievement gap.
Exactly
That's just a
right.
fact of life.
Right, but the point is that a lot of these research-based practices and all that are based upon successful programs for
Yes.
these groups and have taken into account versus in just listening to members of the public, we do not normally get.
That's right.
So I'm referring to the Build Leads program that was
I know you are.
introduced by the, good. I've probably been saying it too much.
It's fairly predictable now.
Yeah, well,
I
good.
think, some strategies.
But those, that came from the IIC, which is teachers, parents, students. It came from the site council. I think the board needs to listen to those people and talk to staff about how we implement.
But staff has implemented, for example, the program that's trying to reach more children of color and
That's
get them
true.
into AP classes.
And
So-
we recognized that when we looked at the warrants
Yep.
earlier. So I think we have a ways to go on the achievement gap. And I think we'll see, we can have a chance to talk about that when we do the SARCs later.
Alan, you used an acronym.
Hear that?
Student achievement,
Accountability.
accountability, records.
Report card.
Report cards, okay. Thank you very much, Paul.
Acronyms.
Thank you.
Well,
Where do I pay my money?
I mean, the only point that I would want to make is that
And I think we've gone a long ways
Oh,
towards
I'm sorry.
improving communications, and I'm impressed.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
these are all important, some I think don't belong, our staff, and I agree with Paul. The realization, though, is the fact is that we try to tackle so much.
True.
And we meet twice a month, and special meetings, and sport, and this and that, we have to if setting the priorities is a goal of ours, we have to prioritize that above other things that are coming at us.
Okay.
If it's, because, everything is a panic mode. I just want to recognize that it's not an excuse, it's that, okay, do we talk about a crisis, or do we talk about prioritizing for the future?
We have to set priorities for setting priorities.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like we're doing pretty well, so we just don't worry about number 4, we're okay, except I want you guys to write more of the notes sometimes. So other than that, so we're working on
You
number
write so
2,
well.
and then compliments will get you nowhere. And then, so it's number 1.
Yes.
We all agree we need to work on number 1. So the question is, we have to take it apart into pieces. What do we actually have to do at board meetings?
But we
Right.
have to schedule that discussion that we never had.
But what are we going to discuss and what are we going to look at? What data do we need to look at? What data have we not looked at? And so I said before, we had the very old list, remember, of the tiers of when we cut?
That's right.
All right, so then we could look at that and see how much we'd replaced, but we also said it's very valuable, as Alan said, to look at the site and school care surveys to see what people want, and then try to figure out if there is some set of data or feedback that we haven't gotten, and then we need to start making a list.
Yes, and as you pointed out, if staff has proposals for strategies for closing the achievement gap, we need to prioritize those.
Right, for example, if they want to continue or they need funding to continue current projects that they think are working well, whether it's venture or the,
Ed said?
I'm not using acronyms, see, that's why I hesitate for a minute.
The
Or the
worst
program
offender.
that encourages underrepresented minorities into the AP courses, then we'll just need to know that and do that. So when are we gonna do it? So,
Special meetings.
So let me see if I can summarize then what I'm hearing.
okay.
So what I'm hearing is that we would like to maintain a separate set of board goals distinct from district goals. Is that the first? Are you all sort of saying that, or
I agree with that.
A short,
a short set, just really to guide how we do our meetings? Really, what we try to work on at the meetings
Yes.
first. So the second thing I think I'm hearing is that we want to set priorities. That is our top priority for this coming year.
Priorities for what we will fund,
What we will fund.
as we get money.
Okay.
Including strategies to close the achievement gap.
excellent.
Including strategies for the achievement gap.
Or projects.
Okay. I mean, I let me just make one more point, and then if people don't agree with me, that's fine. I think I see that all as being more efficient if we combine our goal, that is, if we don't have a separate governance calendar item of setting board goals each year, but that we rather have a set of district goals that we agree with staff, and that during board meetings throughout the year, we discuss what we want to do next and what we need to get done. In other words, the district goals will be informed by staff, approved by the board, and moved forward by the board to the extent that that's what we need to do. If we're going to do a list of funding priorities, for instance, we have to get input from staff. We can't just sit here and look at surveys and decide we're going to fund this
Good
or that
point.
first. I think we need to hear what's being funded, what's been cut, and what's educationally sound.
I'm
So,
sorry, John.
let me just finish. So I think that we might be doing something that's less efficient than what we could be doing. We'd get to the same place if we set district goals that we would all work on together, recognizing some of those would be mainly for the board to do, and some would be mainly for staff to do, and some would be both. And then throughout the year, keep coming back to them. That's where we've fallen down. We haven't come back to these. We put them once on the governance calendar and forget about them. But if we made them part of regular board meetings to refer to our goals, it might be more efficient.
I think that's, go ahead, Paul.
Sorry, I think that could work, but we would have to be very careful how we approached it. And I think the only one on that list that's really in question, I think, was the first one. And I would just want to say that a district goal would have to be something like restore funding to programs as money becomes available. But the board would still be responsible for setting the priorities for that. And that would have to be understood because that's a board function. So in every case of every district goal, we would need to look at it and say, is there a board function involved in this goal? And if so, what does the board need to do about that?
Yeah, and I agree. I think that's something we should do as a matter of course when there's a...
So when should we do that?
Well, the goal setting has been typically in May.
Around the time of the May revision?
Yeah, after the May revise, maybe early June, so it can be tied somewhat to the budget.
We're going to be really busy this June, I think.
Yeah, so...
Because,
Point.
but then,
we are busy anyway.
but then what I'm saying is that I don't think you can accomplish number one if you wait until the May revise. And it seems like there are a number of steps that have to be taken prior to to that time.
Right.
So the timing seems off to me.
But then this is an ongoing goal. I'm sorry. This is an ongoing goal that we will now continue with because we set it previously. So we don't
Okay.
have to forget about it.
Okay.
But I would
agree.
just merge it in.
I agree, that's what I was going to say.
Okay.
And the other thing is that, to revise what I just said, I've been really busy in June. Setting district goals is actually a great idea for one of the first things we do with the new superintendent.
Yeah. That's true. I would agree. So then do we then need some agenda committee work to set meetings to discuss funding priorities to complete this goal? A board discussion.
Yes.
That's,
Sounds like
I'm hearing lots of yes.
Sounds like you guys have some work to do.
All right, so we're going to have to try to do that. We'll look at the calendar and see what can happen. All right, so I think brings us to the end of that item, unless there's anything else.
It was a good discussion.
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you.
The highlight of the evening.
Yes.
Okay, so now we have a series of action items.
You want
and
to discuss your process for the superintendent?
B, thank you so much.
Yum.
We have item B, the process for the advisory committee for superintendent selection.
Find my lists.
I have it here. You told me to bring it, and
And you listen.
and I listened, and here
Are
it
the
is.
loudspeakers on in the hall?
I don't know.
There's still teachers out there, and it'd be really good if they heard this discussion.
If they would like it.
It involves them, and I think
Yeah,
they would-
absolutely.
they would
Thank
wanna
you,
hear it.
Jackie.
So just an update for the public that we did hold a special board meeting yesterday. And the board developed and finalized interview questions and procedures. Candidates were presented to the board, and Ray and Associates assisted the board in selecting semifinalists for the interviews. And at this time, we have done that. Then the interviews for the semifinalists have been scheduled for Thursday, March 27th, and Friday, March 28th. And finalist interviews will be the following week, most likely on March 31st. So the thing that we need to do is decide how we will develop and coordinate a stakeholders advisory group that will
For the finalists.
for the finalists, whether they're 3 or 2 or even 1. And how would that be comprised, and what kind of confidentiality goes into the process? That's pretty much it. I sent out a suggested draft of who might be on that committee. At least 3 teachers, 1 from each level, 1 site administrator, a parent from each level chosen by the PTAs, classified staff chosen by CSEA, and classified staff chosen by SEIU, and at least 1 community representative, although an idea came to my head that maybe we'd have a representative from each of our major 3 funding groups, school care, AEF, and it's an acronym, Education Foundation, and the Music Fund. So that's just a starting point as to what I think, because as Ray and Associates said, the ideal group would be 10 to 12.
Oh, is that, so that's one clarification.
As high as 12, they thought would be.
I think
That would be the
what they said.
highest.
That's a really high number.
It's a lot of people. Okay, Pat?
So, thank you
You're welcome.
for your work on trying to figure out how we're going to compose the Community Advisory Committee. So what I would like to suggest is that in the recruitment of the individuals and then the selection of them, when it says 3 parents, 1 from each level, elementary, middle, and high, in order to make sure that we have a diverse representation, I would like to make sure that we have parents whose children went through all of the elementary schools, and that could be fairly easy. For example, let's say you had a Cornell parent at elementary. You could have a middle school parent whose children came from Ocean View. Do you understand what I'm saying? But I think it would not make any sense to have 3 parents whose children all went to Cornell, because then you wouldn't have, a representative body of parents and experiences. So, I would like to suggest that in asking the PTAs
and PTSAs.
PTSAs, they might give us a list, maybe of at least 2 or 3 who would be willing to serve, so that, and maybe we could get that just basic information,
I mean, I think it would be great to have a parent from every school. It's just that it becomes
just too many
unwieldy.
people. Yeah.
No, I'm
Yeah.
not saying, I'm just saying you said 3 parents.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. That's
So if I could explain the process a little more, because I'm not sure it's clear for those of you who haven't sat through all of our discussions. The board has gone through, well, let's see, the search firm got something like 85 responses. Country, nationwide. They winnowed it down to 13. In a very long session yesterday, the board winnowed it down to 6. Those 6 will come in, be interviewed by the board, and we'll cut it down again to probably 2 or 3. Those 2 or 3 are the final candidates, and before we select which one of those we want to give an offer to, we will have them interviewed. I mean, we will interview them, but we will also have them interviewed by this Community Advisory Committee. The committee, as was done the last time we hired a superintendent, will give feedback on each candidate. They won't rank them, won't make a recommendation, just give feedback that we will then take into account along with all the other feedback and impressions that we have in making the final decision. But it'll be very important to us what that feedback is. We want to be sure that teachers are well represented in that committee, but the committee has to be small enough so that somebody can sit in a room with them and actually respond to questions. So we can't have one teacher from each school. So what Ron has proposed is one teacher from each level, one from elementary, one from middle, and one from high. And of course, the teachers would decide who those representatives were. If you have questions or comments about this, we'd love to hear them now.
And the idea is that the same day that we are interviewing the finalists, the advisory group would be interviewing them as well. So they would actually be rotating through 2 separate interviews of about an hour each, or more, depending on what's needed. At the end of the day, the person that works with the community group will be taking copious notes, and it's one of our advisors, and bring those notes to us and review everything that was said and all the ideas so that we can deliberate and try to make a final decision that day. Don't know if that's going to happen or not, but we want your input.
Ron, could you explain the confidentiality issues?
There is an issue of confidentiality because when these folks come in, some of them are coming from jobs where people don't know that they're thinking about leaving. There's legal issues that the search agency has, Ray and Associates, where it's their reputation, and if something leaks, that would be a problem. They've sent us a sample of a confidentiality agreement, which I've disseminated to the board, and I guess I should read it out loud. This is just a sample. We haven't edited it, so we're looking for ideas. And it says, I understand, a confidentiality agreement, I understand that my participation in the stakeholders interview panel is conditioned upon my agreement to maintain absolute confidentiality regarding the identity, application, and all of the information for each of the applicants I interview. I understand that my role as a panel member is to listen to the candidates' answers, excuse me, and to provide verbal feedback to the search consultant. I agree that I will not discuss the interviews among other panelists or with anyone outside the panel at any time in the future. I understand that I may not take any written or digital notes or written materials from the interview outside of the interview, room. Strange wording. I understand that I may not take any recording of the interview or any photos of the candidates or the interview materials. I understand that the release of any information regarding the applicants for the Albany superintendent position or their statements and answers to questions during the interview may cause them to suffer financial and professional harm in their current employment and also in their efforts to secure employment in the future. I understand that I may be held personally liable for any breach of this agreement and/or violation of candidates' confidentiality. I willingly sign below and acknowledge the confidentiality of the applicants and the interview process. So we would ask anyone who participates to sign that.
The search firm's pretty paranoid, as you can tell. We're
These
having
are
to sign
very
confidential agreements ourselves
but-
just to see their interview
It
packets.
is paranoid, but it is out of respect for people who are trying to, I mean, I think it is out of respect for the candidates.
It is.
And it is
Yeah.
only fair. And I will say that when I served on the last Community Advisory Committee, and I would say it would make more sense to make some mention of the confidentiality ahead of time. Because I don't think that was clear in the recruitment of the participants last time.
So I've written actually a draft of a notice that when we come to agreement tonight, which I think I passed out as well.
Yeah.
And Jackie was kind enough to copy. Again, this is a draft because we have some decisions to make that we would put out and give to everybody who's helping us find the folks for, to the teachers who are recruiting teachers to sit, and to the parents, to the PSATs. And the wording I came up with today, the school board is setting up a panel of representative staff and community members to interview the final candidates for the position of superintendent. These interviews will take place on March 31st. Panelists will be asked to give feedback with no vote on these candidates to be provided to the school board. The interviews will be confidential, and participants will be asked to sign a confidentiality statement.
Good.
And that the board has determined that the staff interview panel will consist of, we're going to make that decision now, I hope, and to be selected by whoever we decide should go out and do it. And the names of the participants will be provided to someone, whether it's me or the board president or to Jackie. And we need to decide that as well.
That's very clear, very brief, but
I think maybe confidentiality agreement rather than.
Yeah.
saying-
Okay.
Yeah.
Please.
Kim Gray, I have just one clarification question. So for the Community Advisory Committee, they will be there interviewing, how many, is it 6, you said?
No, we'll be interviewing 6, and then
we're
we'll
gonna go
be,
to the 2 or 3?
Yes.
yeah, so the ones that we're serious about, these are the people that we really are serious
So
about.
it's at that point that we'll interview,
Yes.
and then
Yes.
we just
Was
give
that-
a rating or pointing system?
But
And,
actually, verbal feedback is what
Just
we
verbal
want,
feedback.
yeah.
okay.
And the search consultant will take you through that process. They're really, really incredibly thorough.
Yeah,
And the amount of information we couldn't absorb in them, how many hours did we sit? About 6
they've
hours?
done this
5
process
hours?
a lot, and I think, I have confidence that they will be able to.
They're the largest
capture-
firm doing this in the nation, I believe. We got candidates from Alaska,
You can't. are
New
you
York,
supposed to say?
everywhere. No, I'm not supposed to say that. We got candidates from all over the place. Sorry.
You can say all of
School
it.
districts in Alaska are going to be screening their kids.
Yeah. All of them.
All right.
It was a national.
Well, so maybe we should take
I'm
these things in
tired.
order.
Yeah.
Make sure I don't miss any. Why don't we first decide on the composition of the panel? So you've got a proposal here. We've heard from Pat that some thought should be given to making sure that among the parents and the teachers selected, that it's not all focused on one elementary, because that's where we have 3 schools as opposed to one for the others.
So that's going to be a little tricky, but I think we can.
I think that would be something we would suggest to the PTAs, but we'd have to accept who they sent us, I would think.
Well, I think that
Right.
we could ask that they try to get a list of at least, say, 2 to 4 volunteers,
Yeah.
and if they could just indicate what schools their children had attended in Albany.
You mean each PTA come up with 2 to 4 volunteers? Because we want 3 parents in all.
Well, oh, I see, because,
Because we don't want to make the final decision. We want the PTAs to make the final
but how will the 3 elementary schools choose a single?
That's for them to figure out?
There are already occasional joint meetings to set up things like the giving campaign.
decision. I don't even know.
I don't know if they're meeting regularly as a
No, it's
joint
not regular.
group.
We have to figure out how to approach.
I expect they would pick one of the 3 presidents, don't you?
Well, I mean, I think it's all right for each elementary PTA to give us a suggestion. And then what I'm just saying is that whoever is comprising the 3 parents should just look at who the high school and middle school parent are, what their background is, and then there would be possibly a logical choice, right? Or do I need to be specific? Nobody's understanding what I'm talking about.
I think I understand you, but I don't want to be in the business of telling the PTAs who's representing them.
Well, we pulled together from the PTAs, and Jackie helped do that, a group of people to put the profile together
Oh, so you can use that same group.
Maybe we can use that group to choose the three parents. Do we have folks from all three levels? I think we did. I didn't go to the.
Okay, I mean, then that would be logical, but I would then still like to have given to have that group understand that we would like to have a representation of people who have had different experiences in the
Well, if we
district.
can put some of those people in the same room, one of us can do that, and it could be you, it could be
Since
me,
I'm
or-
complaining so much, I will volunteer to do it.
But I would do it otherwise. I
Yes, I would
understand and I
definitely-
agree.
Yeah, I will definitely do it.
Good. So you coordinate with Jackie to.
I will,
do
because
that.
you've
Thank
done
you.
a lot. Okay.
Okay, my only other concern, the one community representative or one school care, one music fund, one AEF,
What do you
Albany
think?
Education Foundation, well, that leaves out the
Athletics.
athletics.
Oh, the boosters.
Athletic
And one
boosters.
boosters, maybe. I thought of that.
And, I'm not sure. I don't know.
That's too big a group, isn't it?
What was your idea for, if we just went with community representative, what was the idea for
Well,
recruiting?
you know,
somebody?
because, well, I mean, I can't think of how to make that selection. We had a community group come in as well for the profile. And that was sort of,
How did you select that community group?
we just put it out there.
We worked with Linda Williams
Linda
to put
did, yeah, Linda.
invitations to solicit input, and I can get that list and I can give it to you.
Yeah,
I think that's great.
Or I could
Because-
come and see Linda, yeah.
Because we have a fairly short time, and that was already a group that volunteered.
Yep.
I just don't
So-
want to give Jackie too much extra work, because she did so much, and Linda did an amazing amount of work.
How
Yeah.
many people were in that group?
I think I was at that meeting, only because it went into another,
Just on the order,
6.
6 or something? So then the group could choose its representative,
That could be.
perhaps.
Yeah, and I think I'll do the same thing to make it fair and to make that process fair. So there is already a self-selected group who chose to come in and help from the elementary schools. So I will just contact
Yeah,
them. and-
they met with Ray and Associates, each one of these different.
Okay.
Remember, I made a list of different groups. that
Right.
we thought-
Okay, so, and we'll just use that same group and ask for 3, okay.
And they could choose one of themselves, or they could choose out for someone else to.
So that
Okay,
would
that's a
bring it
good
back to
idea.
one community representative in that.
Well, how about 2 community representatives, but at large? They don't have to be
Sure.
from specific.
That's probably better.
2.
Split the difference.
Okay.
2 at large.
I'm editing as we go.
And who selects them?
They,
They'll self-select.
all the community groups would have to somehow collaborate.
Oh, I see. Oh, we could have one from that community group at large and one from the fundraisers at large. They came in as a separate group.
How will they?
Oh, they'll fight. That's-
Yeah, that doesn't, I mean, I
No,
don't
it
want
doesn't make
to, I don't
sense.
want to create tension. I think, don't you think it's better just to keep it simple? You get the list from Jackie.
Yeah.
You have this list of self-selected people. You contact them, and then you say, we need 2 representatives who would be willing to serve on this.
I think that works.
They're
Yeah.
already involved and
Yeah,
interested.
we just want involved, interested, intelligent people to give opinions, and
But we need to be fair, and they volunteered, right? And it's a group, and
Yes,
we can,
that's
okay,
fine, yeah.
okay.
sounds good.
So 2. That'll give us 11 people.
Need water?
Okay, so let me,
Pass down the water.
so just to summarize, we've got 3 teachers, 1 at each elementary, middle, high, 1 site administrator, 3 parents, 1 from elementary, 1 middle, 1 high, 1 classified CSEA representative, 1 classified SEIU representative, and 2 community representatives at large for 11 total. Okay.
I'll put that back. I'll take this draft of what we're giving out to folks, and I'll put that list in the first blank space.
Right, and then I'll need a copy so that I
Yeah.
can give it to that group. Okay.
Yeah, I'll finish this. I'll give it the draft maybe to Jackie. You can send it out to folks, and they can do any editing.
Ron, did you consider at all a central office person?
I was thinking about that.
Because it seems like you have 1 administrator in this huge group.
I thought
That
about that.
seems reasonable.
That goes to 12.
Yeah, that goes.
I did. I meant to bring that up tonight. It's just that was a question mark.
Yeah, actually, I thought of that before too, and
Yeah.
forgot to mention it. Yes, that's a good idea.
That gives us 12.
Yeah, which is their limit.
Could I just clarify, when do I have to have this list of people, do you think? Let's think about it.
By yesterday would be fine.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
Well, we need to get that group comprised, probably, by the beginning of the week that we're doing the week from Monday.
Very good, okay.
That gives us plenty of time.
Yeah.
Can you go over that one more time?
The people?
3 teachers,
Got it.
one site administrator, 1 central office person.
Okay.
I
Who
guess
is not the superintendent.
and not leaving.
Maybe I don't need to say that.
3 parents, 1 CSEA,
Right?
1 SEIU, 2 community.
2 community.
A week from
That should be a total of 12.
the 17th.
It
Excellent.
is.
Thank you for your work
All right,
on
that's
that.
good.
Thanks, Ron.
Board Member Reisman.
Ron, what else do we need to decide? Do we need to finalize this confidentiality agreement tonight?
You know what, I can send this out and,
Did we want a lawyer to look at it, or is it good as it is? Do we need it to be looked at by a lawyer?
that's the other question is, and I meant to bring this up earlier also. There was a suggestion that we actually, if we're going to be using a lawyer, do we want a lawyer that is not working with the district now and will not be working with the district in the future? That's a very...
To negotiate the contract.
To negotiate the contract and also maybe to look at this. Ray and Associates thought the same thing that you sort of said earlier, that, this is just, there's no way to legally bind this, but it's just to let people know how important it is. So they were back and forth about whether or not we should have a lawyer look at that or not.
Oh, they were. But that's separate from whether we're going to have a separate lawyer to negotiate the contract.
How would we go about it? We'd
Well,
have to
wouldn't
put
we
out
have to
an
do an
RFP.
RFP, wouldn't we?
You have to do an RFP, put together something, and then you don't like to ratify contracts, so you'd have to have it, I guess, at the next board meeting, your contract.
Do we need a description from Ray and Associates, I wonder, for an RFP for,
I think we could put one together and you can review it.
Okay.
I don't know how you're going to get it out, though, and respond to it.
I should have suggested it sooner. I had meant to suggest it sooner.
Well, Ray, was back and forth about whether we really
Right,
need one.
what you might consider, though, is that we retain 3 different firms.
Oh, okay.
Okay, you have a new firm that you've just moved to, who has absolutely no relationship with the district other than the board. So that might be someone you might want to talk to.
But if they have no expertise in...
Oh, they do.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
huge firm.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is, since they don't have any relationship and haven't dealt with me as a superintendent or any other matters, other than the matter you're dealing with in closed session, and they already have a relationship with you, that perhaps the board president might want to talk to the principal about.
The Ray and Associates thinking on that.
If we wanted to, because by that time, a candidate would have developed a relationship with certain legal, entities that we're working with, and then we might want to have just a separate objective. So I'm willing to just use who we have.
We did hear it was less important for the first contract than for the subsequent contracts.
It seems a little bit funny to me, because you'd be actually saying to a law firm, we'd like you to bid on something that will guarantee we'll never hire you for anything else.
Well, we're not going to write that in the RFP.
Hopefully they're not stupid.
Okay.
I'm wondering if, I'm again thinking off the top of my head, whether Ray and Associates actually have an attorney that they use that we could write into their contract.
You want to make sure that it's someone who does business in California.
Yeah.
So there's no hurry, is what I'm saying, since I had waited this point, so we'll just go ahead and go with who we normally use, and we'll have a little time to think about it. Is that all right?
What do you
That's
mean
okay
by
with
who
me,
we
yeah.
normally use? Just our regular?
Well, I'm saying
Yeah.
I didn't suggest it soon enough, so we can't get an RFP, so we'll just go with,
Well, we could
You
go
have a
with
choice.
this new
You
attorney.
have a choice of 3 different firms that you're in contract with.
right.
Lozano and Smith, Fagan, Freeman, and Fullfrost, and
One that we've.
Atkinson,
Atkinson,
Adelson.
right.
And blah, blah,
et
blah.
cetera.
Yeah, right.
Atkinson has the least
Relationship with us.
relationship with us and with superintendent.
So if you'd
Yeah,
like,
so let's do
I can
that.
approach them and ask if
Yeah.
they have the ability
Great.
to do this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So just to,
President.
quickly, Lozano wrote the first contract for me, and so the board contracted with Lozano 6 years ago. Then the subsequent renegotiations were with Fagan and Fullfrost.
Thank you for the clarification.
So we'll ask Atkinson first.
Okay.
Yes, but we'd like to see if they actually have any, well, you said that they're.
They're pretty.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Look at the letterhead, it's like 50, it's all over the state. Okay, and the names, when we put the committee together, do you want me to assort this, or Jackie, or Jonathan, or it doesn't matter?
I'm sorry, to put,
In other words, people are going to give names of who's going to be on the committee. They have to give them to somebody. Should they give them
Okay.
to me?
I think-
sure, you've been taking the lead on
I'll
this
do
so
it.
far. If you're
Sure.
willing, that would be great.
Can we work together?
So
Yeah, we'll
thank
work
you.
together.
So I'll get the,
Thank Jackie, she's been.
Yeah.
doing a lot
yes,
of-
Jackie's been wonderful. So I know what to do and who to get stuff from and who to give it to. Okay.
Great, so what I'll do is I'll rewrite this draft with all the
Thank you.
information filled in. Any comments you have on it, get to me, and
It's
I'll
very
send this
good.
out.
It's just pithy and, short and.
Well, I took
yeah.
the one that they gave us yesterday, or they sent it to me when we
Okay.
were meeting, and it was long, and it was wordy, and I just cut it down,
Thank you.
reworded it. So,
Great.
Good
Thank you,
stuff.
Ron.
you're welcome. I don't like a lot of words.
Yeah.
All right, is that everything on this,
I think so.
this item? All right,
Thank
then.
you.
Thank you. So we're now ready for review and action, and we've got the interim financial report, second interim.
Can we move
Yeah,
some
I
of
feel
the
good
other
about
items
that.
ahead while they're trying to fix the screen?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So we've got
There's a
plenty of
screen
things we
cover.
can just run through while they're working on
Absolutely.
it.
Don't we can just do
That's a
some
good
other
idea.
stuff?
So we should hold
Yeah,
off
I
on
feel
the
good, too.
SARCs as well in case we want to put them up.
What do you think, Richard?
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Maybe we should just move forward then. Let's just move forward.
We can look at our own, we have them here,
Yes.
I think.
Oh,
Does
here we
everyone
go.
have a copy of the,
Yeah.
Oh, we don't
the
have,
audience.
we don't have the
Yeah.
PowerPoint.
we have
Oh,
the
there it is.
PowerPoint now.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Yes, good.
Oh, sorry, pass them on down.
Do we have extras?
Okay, we have it in our packet, so if anyone from the audience wants a copy.
These are for them.
We don't have the PowerPoint in our packet.
Yeah, I do.
Oh,
No, it's not.
It's coming.
Here we go.
Did I miss it?
Here's two copies here, one for,
You're welcome.
oh, yeah.
Wait a minute.
Everybody have one?
I'll take one.
sure. Oh,
Yeah, and we can
I'll take
share
one.
too,
No, we've
so-
got them, we've got them.
Wait a minute,
We got
do
plenty?
students get
Yeah.
one?
They get one.
You need more?
Because you're so
Here's
deeply
more.
interested in every slide.
I've got
Oh,
them.
okay, here you go.
Yeah, it looks like everyone has
We have
one.
plenty.
I think we're set.
Yeah.
All right, off we go.
Yeah, this is going to be kind of
them
a
up here if
difficult
anybody wants.
presentation because it's really more visual, but I'll do my best. So, and I didn't number the pages because I was thinking obviously it was going to be up on the screen. So,
We understand.
Don't worry about it. That
Yeah.
We'll number as we go, maybe.
yeah, and it actually is the second interim financial report. And so what the second interim does is it identifies changes for the period of November to January because you approved the first interim. And typically with the second interim, you should not have significant changes because your staffing's in place, your health and welfare benefits are known. For us, we had already settled all of our bargaining unit agreements. So you're pretty far along in the process. So if you have a lot of changes, there should be a really good reason that you have a lot of changes at your second interim. And then we look at our multi-year analysis based on what we know today and where we're going to be in 2 years based on what we know today. And then we certify that we're fiscally sound. So the biggest change for us since the first interim report is our enrollment growth. And so what this is it's a snapshot of within FCMAT's multi-year projection software. There's a component for enrollment. And you can sort of choose, you can put in the data and say, go all the way back to the beginning and forecast out. But because you can see our data is rather sporadic, we grew 75, then we lost 70, then we lost 8, and then this year we're up 46. I just chose a very simple method saying that we're probably going to continue to grow about 40 for the next 3 years. Another option that the district can look at, and Superintendent Stevenson and I have chatted about this, is we could contract with a consulting firm to come in and do a full-blown enrollment projection study. Will it be accurate, and can we go forward? It's kind of tough, because when you look at our numbers, even if someone had done enrollment projections, they would not have guessed this or projected this.
Right.
And then when you throw in the TK issue,
Right.
that becomes even more complicated, because used to be we could project kindergarten by looking at 5 years ago the birth rate in our zip code, projecting out and saying an estimate. But now with TK, it's an option. It's not
That's
necessarily.
transition kindergarten?
I have to, yes, transitional kindergarten. So, you know, what we've sort of done in the past is really try to stay on top of enrollment. We work with Marcia Brown and Linda, you know, in the office to try to really get that number accurate. But even this year, we grew sort of unexpectedly. We're not really sure why we increased by 46. So, it's really tricky. And again, we've gone back and forth with, do we want to pay $3,000 to have someone come in and project something that
Will be totally.
potentially could be useless?
Based on nothing.
All right.
Or do we just kind of try to target and look at historical data and go forward year to year? So that's sort of what we're doing now. It doesn't mean that we can't opt to do another study.
Try the Farmer's Almanac.
Yeah, might be as good.
Or a divining rod. You could try a
yeah.
divining rod.
So the budget revisions since first interim, again, are minimal, $75,000, and that's mostly attributed to that little enrollment growth that we had. Our period one attendance report in December came in higher, and so we built that into our local control funding formula to come up with the additional dollars. Everything else, certainly there's a lot of movement, but overall, we're pretty much the same. The one change that we did make is in the designation of ending fund balance. We designated the $250 that LCFF generates for career ed tech. So we're going to earmark it and set it aside, since we're not quite certain what will happen with the ROP program.
Okay.
And then we can use this money, if we earmark it this year and next year, we could use it as seed money for a new program if ROP continues. So we're just kind of going to earmark it so that it doesn't get lost in the shuffle, and it will be used for career ed tech.
Can I get
How
a,
are we spent?
go ahead, Alan.
How are we spending it in the first year?
We're not.
It's just the 250 shows up.
Right.
We're
Right,
just-
and then, so what will happen is, because this interim report doesn't reflect it, but when we close the books, we will actually we won't just earmark it, we'll move it to fund
fund,
or special reserve. And then the next 2 years, if we're still uncertain about ROP or the career ed tech program, we will have those funds earmarked and set aside. So again, it could be seed money, it could be ROP replacement money. At this point, we just don't know, but we just don't want those funds to get lost in the shuffle.
Reminding you have 13 sections now
Right.
of ROP, so career-focused.
Yeah, and it's about $280,000 for that program.
Goes.
You can
That we-
see that if ROP goes away, it just replaces.
Right.
So, first of all, I think that's a very good idea. But somehow I thought when we heard the career ed tech presentation last time that you seemed fairly sure that the ROP money was going away.
It is.
It's just a matter of when.
Oh, I see. You're
Right.
not sure of the actual implementation
Right.
of the cutoff.
Right,
Okay, thank
right.
you.
So when the May revise comes out, Governor Brown may indicate it might be, obviously it won't be next year, but it could be the year after, or
Gotcha.
he may give us a 2-year window, but we would know more.
Okay, thank you.
So other than that, we're like I said, minimal change. We're still hovering right at that 16% reserve, which we'll talk about that a little later, which is really healthy. Again, going to the next page, the second interim, we have the 15.9. I think it's important to sort of equate it to what that relates to in terms of expenditures. So that's only 2 months of payroll for us. So, 3% is really minimal anymore, and the county office, FICMAT, school services, all everyone, Department of Finance is really recommending to districts that they develop a policy, a board policy, that comes up with a reserve that is a little more insulated, especially with LCFF and the unknowns of the funding and, you know, the gap funding, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. I think it's really important as a board to perhaps look at, you could do a range, or you could just say 3% is just not acceptable, especially with the unknowns of the new funding system. We want 10, or we want 15. And then you could only change it by board action. So I think that might be something we want to look at.
Well, that's
The
great.
state,
I think we should put that as a future agenda item.
Future agenda item.
yes, I would agree that.
New board policy.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, there
Yeah.
we go.
Because the currently, you know, everybody's kind of having, you know, significant reserves because of all the issues that we've all gone through for the past several years. The statewide average for unified districts right now is 15%. So we're right in the ballpark for the statewide average. And again, because of new money coming in, they're recommending that perhaps you don't want to burn down those reserves quickly. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit, because the interim is so basic and there's hardly any changes. So I really wanted to talk a little bit more about the local control funding formula, otherwise known as LCFF. So, you know, it's the more I know about it and learn about it, the more intrigued I am as to how this is all really going to play out. There's two different phases of LCFF. There's the implementation phase, and then there's the fully funded phase. So it's currently targeted for an 8-year implementation. So in 2021, we should be at our target. But this is not in statute. It can be longer or shorter. So if the state decides, whoa, we can't fund that, they could say it's going to be a 10-year phase.
If there's a
So-
recession, if there's a, there's all
Right now,
kinds
they're
of-
saying 8, but we don't know. I agree, Paul. And because this is the first year, we're still waiting for, you know, like they're saying, there could be a lot of fiscal inequities during the implementation phase because of the English learners, the free and reduced counts.
Right.
You know, are people going to be really adamant at their districts about making sure that their free and reduced count is up, or all of a sudden are they going to go way up, and then the state's going to say, whoa, you know, your free and reduced count was 35 and now you're 45.
Oh, you've worked really hard to make sure to identify, to
Right,
get your
because
full.
you receive more money.
Oh, okay.
So, and the state, until the first full year, which is this year, you know, until all the data's in and all the reporting is done, they're not really sure where everyone's going to be. So that could change. That's the volatility of, you know, and this isn't so much us, the districts with high proportions of students eligible for those add-on grants. If some districts, if you're above the 50%,
Yes.
there, you know, there is a lot of volatility in that, because maybe you could go below and then you lose quite a bit of funding, and so there's sort of that line. So luckily for us, we're at 36%.
So we're not
So
going to be
right.
eligible for the add-on supplemental.
Yeah, but once the LCFF is fully implemented, all these inequities and these irregularities of gap and this and that and all the things that we'll talk about in a minute should be eliminated. It should just be a straightforward calculation. But again, they could change it. So until we get through the phase-in period, it's kind of unknown what exactly will happen.
But the districts that are getting special funding will still get their special funding. That won't be an inequity because.
As
they're
long as their
addressing special
student count
needs.
remains up. But so let's say for some reason at a district, they have a decline in their English language learner
Right.
population. They're going to lose money. So, I mean, those are the things you have to really, at a district, be prepared for.
But we don't have to be prepared for it unless we get a lot of district
Correct.
students.
So the next slide is basically just an overview of this year's implementation. And so we received close to $2 million in additional revenue this year. Change per ADA this year.
What slide is this?
I don't know, it's the one, this one.
Okay.
Local control funding, it says first year of implementation?
Right.
Okay. So this just sort of defines exactly how much we did receive this year, and per student, 60/60 at 12-13, 63/21. Now, what's sort of interesting is if you look back at the revenue limit funding in 13-14, we were projected to be at 68/23. So again, it's that phase-in portion that I think sometimes people are a little confused by. So the next slide sort of addresses the phase-in. And so the target, and this kind of goes back to when we used to talk about deficits, and they owe us $1, but we were only getting 87 cents on the dollar because of the deficit. Well, now we don't have deficits, we have gap percentages. So it's just a different term for the same thing. So we have a target, which is basically what we should receive. So for this year, we really should receive 30 million. That would be ideal with our ADA. The floor says your districts are guaranteed last year's per ADA amount times current year ADA. So that's your floor. So if we still were funded the same as last year with our growth, that would be our floor. So it would be the 22.4. The gap, that's the difference between what we should receive and our floor, what we would have received if this whole LCFF thing had never come together. So you go the gap funding, okay, $900,000. Okay, perfect. And then the state and Department of Finance tells districts what percentage of that they're going to fund. So think deficit, because it's sort of the same thing, different terminology. So they say of that 996, we're funding 11.8.
Oh, great.
So your phase-in entitlement, and I know this is kind of, it takes me some time to wrap my head around, is basically your floor, your guarantee of 1213, plus whatever percentage of the gap they are choosing to fund.
So 11%.
Yeah, so this year, again, we received 1.2 million more. We should have received, if we were fully phased in, 7.4 million more, or that full amount.
How does this relate to our constitutional amendment that requires the state to fully fund the schools?
Yeah, it's the same thing with the deficit. You know, if they don't have it, they try to fund it, but they can't. Hence the gap. And that's why when you look at this, for example, moving forward.
Does this mean that they are supposed to pay us back all this money eventually?
Well, that goes back to the deficit and all those funds we lost from 07, 08. The jumping off point for the LCFF was last year.
Aren't we looking at a document that we'll might vote to support later tonight?
Yeah, so if you look at, I think if you really look at this slide, you'll sort of, it does make sense. So the gap percentage this year is 11.7, then it goes to 28, then it goes to 33, then it kind of starts to level off because you can see they're closing the gap. They're going from unfunded of 7.4 at the bottom to unfunded of 3.
But they could change the percentage.
That's the issue. Because that, for example, this 28% for next year, at first interim, we were using 16 because that's what they
Originally told
said.
you.
All districts need to use a gap percentage for 14-15 of 16. In January, the governor came out with, oh, no, it's 28. We're waiting for May
To see,
with the May revise to see if that 28 will hold. Hoping it does.
of course.
We don't know. And that
Okay.
goes back to the volatility of the funding. They can change that percentage whenever they want, basically, just like the deficit. So they are making significant strides toward fully funding. And so you go 16, 17, you go, so if it goes down a few million more, by the time we get to 2021, we should be fully funded. Should be, depending on all these variables. So the next slide is the one I really wanted
I had a
up.
question on this slide.
The what?
I had a question on this slide.
Oh, yes.
So I'm seeing a trend, the floor is going up. Eventually in 16, 17, it's almost at 29 million. And the target is 33 million, which means that basically the gap is narrowing somehow between
Right.
22 million and 30 million. We're at 29 million and 34
Right,
million.
right. And that's the whole idea of the phase-in formula, is to narrow that
So
gap.
we're heading the right way.
Yes. And so if you look at the next slide, I think it makes even more sense, and it would make more sense if it were in color on the screen,
We're
but
theoretically heading the right way.
Yeah,
yes.
We're promised that we're heading the right way.
So this sort of shows you how it works with
Yeah.
I'd say
the jump-off
politically, we're
point of
headed that
funding.
way.
You have your for 12, 13, you have our categoricals that we no longer have. We had a revenue limit. So then moving forward, you have categoricals. You can see, you can't see very well on here, but the categoricals all the way across, they never increase. So the amount of those categorical funds that we received last year,
Yeah.
that they now blended in, that's all we will ever receive.
Okay.
So then they take that gap funding, and then the current year gap funding moves forward to the next year as prior year gap funding, and then they have current year gap funding. So the gap funding each year is comprised of prior year and current year. So don't ask me how they came up with the formula. I don't know. It's beyond me. But it does work, and they are whittling it down. And so you can see that in 16, 17, if all the variables hold true, we'll be at 77.35. Our target is 78.88. And the
And we're
target was,
currently at 6,059.
yeah, the target was derived from taking a jumping off point of last year's revenue limit and categorical per student times 1.94%, 2021. I have no idea where they came up with 1.94,
1.94%.
but that's the calculation, and all districts are, that's how they came up with their target amount. So we're getting pretty close in 16, 17, if everything holds true, to our target. So it's hopeful. There's just a whole lot of unknowns.
Yeah, it's like my brother used to say, if we had eggs, we could have bacon and eggs if we had bacon.
Yeah. So here's a few things that I find pretty interesting about the whole LCFF issue is the legislature and the governor decide on an annual basis at what level to fund these programs. Unlike revenue limits, there's no statutes that specify an annual appropriation to support the local control funding formula. This is Ed Code. A district's annual local control funding formula entitlement is determined by, quote unquote, any available appropriations. Yeah. So we're using the best information that we have, I know. And again, everyone's being cautioned about the volatility of the LCFF, especially this year and probably next year. I think once it's up and running and they sort of have a better idea of where all the districts are coming in at with numbers, I think it'll be a little more solid. I'm hoping. So moving into our multi-year projections, and this is where we really start to look better and better because we are receiving additional money for the LCFF every year. So currently, we're looking at about a $2 million deficit, but we still have a 16% reserve. That's pretty good. Going into next year, now again, this is based on a whole lot of assumptions that really are, probably will change in May. We go down on our deficit spending by $1 million, and we still have a 13% reserve, which isn't bad. Again, based on a lot of assumptions. Now, that third year out, this would be the good news if the parcel tax were still in this projection, because we would not have an operating deficit in 15-16, because it's 956 operating deficit. But if we added back in that $1.3 million in revenue, so we would actually be turning around pretty good by 15-16, based on assumptions. So this, by looking at this, you know, we still have about a 10% reserve in 15-16. And, you know, the one thing I always like to caution people about on that reserve percentage, this is saying that we're going to spend every dime that we have in that budget. It never happens. So usually you're going to fluctuate by about 2%. So if that's 11, that'll probably be more like 13 or 14, depending, because we just never spend every dime that we have.
Does this include the impact of what we're predicting for LCF, local control funding formula?
Is built into this, yes.
It's built in,
With
so
the
it's already there.
assumptions, yeah, with the assumptions that we currently are provided by the county office and Department of Finance. The gap funding percentage, the COLAs. So some of the concerns, of course, is, we've talked about LCFF and the funding restrictions requirements are still, at this time, being developed. They still haven't really specified exactly, for example, the money that we receive for EL and free and reduced, exactly how we have to spend that and what restrictions may or may not be placed on those funds. So that's supposed to be out the end of this month. The emergency parcel tax expires, are aware of that. Healthcare costs continue to escalate. We're up to about $28,000 for a family. So those costs continue to escalate. PERS and STRS retirement employer costs. So this just came out today, for example. PERS rate is currently 11.4. Next year, I think it's going up to 11.7. Eventually, they have it projected out to go up to 20%.
That the district pays.
That the district pays because of the unfunded liabilities. And now STRS is a little more difficult because it's actually in law, so they would have to change the law. It's been 8.25% since I started 26 years ago.
Okay, in interest of avoiding acronyms, can you spell out PERS and STRS?
PERS, Public Employee Retirement System, and STRS is State Teachers Retirement System.
Thank you.
So you have, mostly in PERS is your classified people, classified management. STRS, obviously, State Teachers Retirement System. And so they're both kind of struggling. STRS is struggling more than PERS. They have a lot of teachers retiring and not necessarily a lot of funds to fund those long-term liabilities. So they will be looking at increasing that rate. But like I said, 26 years ago, it was 8.25%. So it doesn't really make sense that they haven't increased it. Now, PERS has constantly gone up. I mean, every year it goes up a little bit, but it's not in law. So PERS can dictate what that percentage will be for the following year. So those are some of the concerns, but overall, at the second interim, we look really good, minimal changes, positive certification, no doubt that we can meet our, fiscal responsibilities for current and subsequent 2 years. Sorry about the.
Thank you, Lori.
It would have been better up there, but.
Yeah, no, this is good. It's clearer. It's clear anyway.
As always, thank you for a very clear and complete presentation.
Yeah, well, the LCFF is it's a little difficult to wrap your mind around
Yes.
and to convey exactly sort of how it works, but hopefully this helps, and we'll continue to discuss it, the funding. And I'll have Jackie send all of you this PowerPoint, so at least you'll have it in color, and the graphs are a little bit easier to look at and see how it works.
Thank you, Laura.
One thing to keep in mind, you were looking at those, the projected steady increase in gap percentages and how they're contingent on funding. So we're now in the third year technically of an economic recovery, and economic recoveries haven't lasted longer than 5 years since World War II.
Exactly.
So this is assuming a 10-year economic recovery to get us up by 2021. Chances of that happening are pretty small.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly. I mean, there are many people in the industry that feel that this is a little overly optimistic.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see what he comes out with.
In May, okay.
Yeah, the May revise will come out, and he'll have his proposal. So it may go back down.
So the gap percentage may go back down from that lovely large.
Yeah,
well,
because it was, like I said, 4 months ago, it was 16.
Yeah.
In January, they came out and said, no, 28.
Yeah,
So-
assuming we have a monotonic increase over the next 8 years is, I think, a little bit optimistic, might be an understatement.
Yeah, yeah. So, and just one other little notation on all of these projections. They're really intended to just snapshot view. We're fiscally okay. One of the things that is not included in the projections are any negotiated salary increase. So those would just compound this, because obviously we have no idea what those percentages would be. So those are not included in multi-years. Your multi-year is just a snapshot. How are we doing? Can we make it? When you look at, that's
Right.
another issue.
Right. So actually, one of my questions was this: the multi-years are looking significantly better now than they did back when we adopted the budget. What are the factors that play into that?
One, enrollment growth,
Okay.
and then the gap funding percentage. Those have gone significantly
Okay.
up since budget adoption. So those two things, I mean, obviously we are receiving more money. It's a good thing. It's look better long-term, but yeah, those are the biggies.
So I'm thinking of parcel tax arguments. And what I'm seeing here is revenues are growing and expenditures are growing, and the excess or the reserve, whatever you want to call it, is declining somewhat. We're seeing it go from 2 million down to a little under $1 million. And then if we pass Measure I, we're going to be positive. We're not going to have a structural deficit. It's going to go away for that year.
If we can replace.
It's going to go away for that year.
If we can replace the full amount.
If you can replace the full amount.
the full amount. Right.
And then, when you were talking earlier about restoration, those
Right.
things aren't in here, are the things that you want to.
So those are all things we're going to have to cover in our education on that.
Right, and so,
Parcel
yes, if you just immediately put the parcel tax back in, yes, you would look good, but then you're also probably going to restore some things due to
Right.
funding, which then might eat up some of that.
So those are good arguments for supporting the parcel tax. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. And that's an important reason to think about the parcel tax, is it actually would help us restore things. It's to actually pay for things that we haven't done in a while. It's not just to make these numbers look good. We're actually going to do stuff with it.
Right.
Anything else on the budget report? Anything from folks in the audience? Question or comment? Please come on up.
I think you did a great job.
Thank
with
you.
your presentation. It was very easy to understand. And what I just want to say is, please call me, because SEIU is very concerned about a few of our districts, Albany, Acalanes, San Ramon, because you guys are over here, kind of. And unbeknownst to yourselves, you have a lot of support, because we are very proud of you, that you guys have had the foresight to go after bonds, to go after parcel taxes before it came down from Sacramento that you should do this. So what has happened, more so with us in Acalanes and not you guys, is like, what's wrong, in your opinion, with LCFF? And we have sent that up the chain, for some of the modifications, like for some of your deferrals to be paid back and all of this kind of stuff. What would help? So please, if a brick hits them in the head, one of you guys need to call me, so I can call our folks, because that's what we have been doing.
Oh, good.
We've already, Acalanes is going out for a parcel tax. We've already got an endorsement from SEIU, and I just told them about it today, because this is significant, because people do not understand. You constantly have increasing costs. And you guys have been around. Some of the people that I work with act like they don't understand sometimes, but we understand, and it's out of your control, it is. And how do you stay solvent? How do you, maintain the quality of education that you're giving? And that is important, especially since we're competing with everybody else. And you're always hearing this whole dogma of, where are the qualified applicants? Where are the qualified applicants? But there's a lot that needs to happen, in my opinion, in K-12 that'll make 13, 14, and our upper institutions successful for our students. And you guys have done a good job. I remember sitting out there once, and you guys were talking about how the elementary school kids need to know how to type, and they need to know how to do they need to know how to do web research. And the one woman was sitting by me, and she says, web research? I said, Google. They need to know how to Google. And, and it sounds like a simple thing, but I have noticed how you guys have continually tried to lay a foundation to be built on as these kids progress. I appreciate it. I do, because I know what's out there. I know adult workers. And whatever help these kids can get here is very, very important.
Thank
So,
you.
like I said, call me.
Yeah.
I will be on the horn with our lobbyists, and they always take our calls. Because, like I said, there's a few of you guys that are not in the Oakland, Hayward, San Francisco bucket.
Right.
And we just think it's unfair. I mean, we've got some strong opinions, we do. And just keep up the good work. And I know I missed the other one, but when you guys were talking about the achievement gap, I did my own research on this. And what I did, I called my mom and her friends. You had to be 62 to sit at the table. And the reason that was significant is that they were all the one-room school shack. And it's like, how did you guys learn? You didn't have this, you didn't have that. And a lot of times when you came to California, you were skipped a grade or two. And what my mom and her friends explained to me was that in the morning, the teacher would work with the high school students. And in the afternoon, the high school would do the junior high, and the junior high would do the elementary. Now, they didn't know what they were saying, but it was a very elaborate one-on-one system. I do not represent your IAs, but it's like it may be something to consider, having some extra support in the classroom, either by IA, and I know we have some creative, seasoned faculty around here that could probably come up with some brilliant internship or partnership with Cal. You know, I know you guys can think of something. But it was something. So
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate your time.
Just a quick comment. 21 years in the Oakland schools. We used to bring grandmas into the school.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it helps.
So do I have, I think we need a motion for this report.
I'll move that we accept the interim financial report.
All right, we've motioned and a second to accept the second interim financial report. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And so that is approved. Item B, we have the SARCs.
Point out that we have 7.5 minutes left on the agenda.
And we have 7.5 minutes left on the agenda and several important items to get to. I think we will need to extend the meeting. I think we can get to most of these.
We have to approve the SARCs before March 15th?
Yeah, we need to get to these. Can we extend to 9:45?
Move to extend to 9:45.
I can.
Okay. See if we can get it done sooner than that.
Reluctantly.
So, the SARCs. Would you like to introduce? Oh, Marcia, Dr. Brown, thank you.
Good evening. So SARCs have been school accountability report cards, fondly known as SARCs, have been required for school districts since 1998. And the state law specifies specific information that has to be included in those SARCs, school accountability report cards. And so each school does it. They are a little confusing in that these are the report cards for 12-13, but they're being brought to you in the 13-14 school year. So they tend to be hybrid documents. They tend to have last year's data, but this year's information about who the principal is, some of the things that particular school is doing. So with that, I present to you the 2012-13 school accountability report cards for our 6 schools. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Members. Looks like everybody, so why don't we just come down the line. Ron, you want to start?
Well, the only thing that jumped out at me is, particularly at the high school, the drop in mathematics in general, which just seems curious to me, and particularly for African Americans. It's been a real significant drop, 30%. So, you know, we're still talking about the achievement gap, and I just want to keep that on the burner. And I'm just curious why the math has dropped off.
I don't know off the top of my head.
Well, there's 66%, 10-11, 64%, and 61%. So I don't know if that needs to be looked at or not.
Is it partly small numbers? The numbers are the population.
No, I'm just talking about the entire school.
Oh, entire.
So for Albany High School, mathematics in 66, then 64, then 61. And that's not what I would have expected. Yeah, it just jumped at me.
So that's based on STAR data, right?
Correct.
I wonder if people
Yeah.
stop teaching to that test as we approach the Common.
Well, last year they were starting to look at Common Core, and
But we never really teach to that test
Yeah,
anyway.
it's a good point.
I mean, teaching to the test has not been a big thing in
Yeah,
high
no,
school.
that's a
Correct.
good point. It's a good point.
Yeah, teaching to think has been a
Yeah.
big thing.
It's a number to keep in mind. Pat, did you have a question?
I had some concerns about some of the graduation rates, and I wasn't able to give you the information earlier. So maybe if I could just express my concern, and at a future point, we might need to consider discussing this, the board. Some of my concerns were that we did not meet the 90% graduation rate. That seems disappointing in Albany. In addition, I was a little concerned. I thought I saw that the dropout rate looked like it came mostly from McGregor. That's a separate issue that we could talk about later. Let me just focus on graduation. And then there was the district not meeting the, that's a separate, that's not in the SARCs. But there's something else where we talk about the district not meeting the EL graduation rate. So I basically, I'm expressing concern. I would like to drill down at some point, like, for example, is the EL rate lower because we're not providing enough Casey support, because a certain percentage of EL students are not passing the English Casey? I would hope at some point that we look at the data a little more closely, and who is that more than 10% that is dropping out?
I think we both want to jump right in to talk to you about CalPads.
Okay.
And how,
Okay.
when a student leaves the district.
Acronym is Marla.
I'm sorry. The California,
Eds.
yeah.
It's the data, it's the state data
The state
system.
database.
Right.
It's state database, which tracks students by a,
By a student ID number.
by student ID number.
10 digits.
A 10-digit
So
student
when a
ID number.
student leaves our district, we need to code where that kid went,
Okay.
okay? And quite frankly, and this starts in the 7th grade, 6th grade.
It does now, yes.
Starts at the 6th grade. We have kids that can return to their home countries.
Returning to their home country, you
And we
mentioned
might never know where they went. So they're considered a dropout.
that. So there is an exit code I know that is
There is.
called leave the country, right?
Yes,
Left the
but
country.
we need to know that they've left the country.
Oh, I see, so you can't
And
put
so
left
we-
the country.
No, we have to rely on the transcript request.
Okay.
Okay, so there are many, many, many other factors that go into this. And quite frankly, this is causing Principal Barone heartburn, because he knows perfectly well the kids that he got in 9th grade, 98, 99% of those kids graduate.
Yeah,
So he's
that
going,
was what-
how can this be? Well, it's because they start much younger, and we have to track every single child. So Marcia, you just want to quickly jump in on that?
Sure, on a couple of things. I was actually conversing with Dr. Barone today, and he was not aware that his English learners who get certificates of completion are considered dropouts. Those are your students who have not passed Casey, and they have 2 years after they are 18 or after they finish their high school program to take the Casey and pass it and get a high school diploma. However, at the time that they're given a certificate of completion, they are not considered high school graduates. They're
I'm aware
considered
of that.
dropouts. So he's asked me for that data. I've given him that data. But the state graduation rate is 90%, and in 2012, our district rate was 89.66%.
Okay.
So we didn't make it, but it was by a fraction of a percent. That's not saying that we don't care about those other 10% of the kids. And for English learners, we have failed to meet the rate for the past 3 years, and it's been at 88.89% in 2011, 77.27% in 2012, and 77.97% in 2013. I did send this to all the board members, but it was late. You got your, I know it's been a really busy couple of weeks for all of us, so I've sent you this data in a response to some of the board questions that I received. And the Casey is one of those barriers, and as you'll see later, we've written a a goal in our Title III Program Improvement Plan to provide tutoring for those students who are struggling with the CASE. The other thing I might add around the English learner piece is we can get a student from any country in 11th grade who speaks no English, and they are still expected to pass the CASE in both English language arts and math and graduate completely, or they're considered a dropout unless we are able to get those codes. The other thing that we have started doing in the past 2 years is we contact CalPADS, the state database, when they release our tentative dropout information, and we get a list of every student by name and identification number. And then I work with our Dan Haller, our student data, our data guy, and the high school to make sure that those kids truly, we don't know what happened to them. And we make some phone calls, and we write some, and we check some files, and we've been able to find duplicates in that list from the state, and we've been able to winnow down and say, no, we know about this kid, and we've been able to reduce that. But we now have that as a regular practice, is we get that list of students that they are saying are our dropouts, and then we go and verify it ourselves.
Thank you. That's very satisfactory answers. Thank you.
Thanks.
Paul, do you have any?
Same question as Pat's.
Oh, wonderful. Alan?
I have a couple extra ones. I'm glad to see that the board has one of its goals addressing the achievement gap. So I don't need to talk about that anymore. Let's see. I noticed that about 2/3 of the, or about 1/3 of the students don't seem to take the test. If there's an enrollment of 1,300 at the high school, 826 seem to have.
Seniors don't take
Are you talking about the CASE, or are you talking about STAR?
STAR, I think.
STAR.
12th graders don't take it.
What?
12th graders do not take the STAR.
So it's 11th grade that
It's
takes-
10th,
Oh, I
9th,
see.
10th,
the
and
same
11th.
Same thing happens to the elementary? There's only one grade that's taking it?
3rd, 4th, and 5th.
Gotcha. Okay, that explains that. I think you've told me that before, I just forgot, thanks. Also note that while the school district is somewhat concerned about the achievement gap, there's a far worse achievement gap in the state of California.
Yes.
Most certainly.
Significantly more.
No excuse.
Let's physical fitness. I guess I'm somewhat concerned that only 82% of the kids can pass 4 out of 6, or 5 out of 6, or 6 out of 6 of the standards for the state. I just wanted to note that.
We only test 3 grade levels for physical fitness.
Again, same
5th,
thing.
7th, and 9th.
Okay. I wish that were clearer in the, what do we call it? The student.
School accountability report card.
Student accountability report. Thank you. And a little concern, similar concern to what Pat has said, and that's our dropout rate seems to be increasing from 4% to 6%, but I think it's probably related to the explanation you've already given for graduation. And then there's the item under funding, the financial data comparison. The high school, it says that expenditures per pupil are 4,300. I know they're way more than that. And the state average is 5,500. The school district average is 5,200. Seems to be some inconsistency I don't understand.
They take that data from the forms that the district completes. I don't have anything to do with that.
But we do spend more than that for a student. We've already seen that.
And it could be
just
that's
maybe
maybe
we
just
could-
unrestricted dollars that they're reporting? Not restricted
Right, I think that we've had this discussion before. And
Okay, that's
we'll
fine.
get-
I just
We'll,
wondered.
we'll get
Sure,
back to you on that,
thank
but I'm
you.
sure that it's not all of our revenue.
So I really appreciate getting these reports. Great education on how our school's doing and what we're doing.
And the data's not always accurate that we get back, so.
Right. But we
it's
should keep
gotten
in
better.
mind that, you know, we have these to go back to. We can refer to them throughout the year, and if we feel there's something in it, like the math stuff, the math scores we want to
It's a
address.
good reference document, that's right.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so any comments or anything from anyone in the crowd? Okay, so can I have a motion on these?
I'll move to approve the 2012-13 school accountability report cards.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, Marcia,
You're welcome.
for presenting those. So we now have a resolution to release temporary certificated employees. I believe this is an
Page
annual
304.
exercise.
304.
304, thank you.
Thank
Item
you.
C, page 304.
Let's track.
Yes, this evening, this is a routine matter. Trying to find the page here.
304.
There we go. So 305, basically, you'll see all the temporary teachers that we have who serve as replacement teachers for teachers on leave or job shares. And this is just a confirmation that, that they are employed for 1 year only.
Well, we changed the policy, I believe, a couple of years ago in granting of multi-year leaves. Have you seen a decrease in this
Yes.
list due to that?
Yes, I have.
You've been working on that since day one, I know that. So the only question that I had asked, and I sent to Marla, and she went and sent it on to Cynthia, is, I was just curious, what happens when a permanent teacher gets and I gave two specific examples of a permanent teacher who's partially funded by soft money, and we're laying off that part. And the answer basically showed that we guarantee that they still have the full job that they've always been guaranteed. So thank you for getting that for me. In other words, we have, for example, we have one student who's been that I asked about, a permanent teacher at the middle school. 0.2 of this person is
What I've been looking at too.
Yeah, it's just because, you know the people who've been around for a while. 0.2 of the current funding is being eliminated, at least temporarily released. That person is still 100% employee for the district.
So there's another person.
I was double checking
There's
that.
another person here, Ron, on this list, that's .2, that has been hired specifically to hold that place for the permanent teacher.
That's complex.
Yeah, it is.
All right, I have a motion.
I'll move to approve the resolution to release temporary certificated employees.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the motion carries unanimously. So we're on to second resolution, which is to approve the release, the next resolution to approve the release and reassignment of certificated administrators.
Yes, we have 3 interim positions that need to be notified that, should they not be hired in another process, that they would be reassigned.
And the names of these people is
I know who.
confidential?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So we do not mention them.
Confidential, yeah. So I'll move that we approve the release and reassignment of certificated administrators.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So unanimously, the motion carries. We have resolutions for support for protection of local school revenues act, school funding property tax revenues initiative, and this is one I was going to introduce. So I can read the resolution, but essentially this goes back to what we were talking about earlier. So previously called deficits, now called gaps. State funding has been highly variable for education, but especially since around 2004, when the legislature, without anybody really noticing, did some shuffling. They shifted a bunch of property taxes that had previously gone to fund schools to backfill cities and counties who had seen a loss in their revenue when, I guess it was under Schwarzenegger, the vehicle license fee was drastically reduced. It was a huge pot of money that was removed, and cities and counties were the ones that ended up getting a backfill of state property taxes to cover that gap. Schools then were left being funded by a higher percentage of general fund and a lower percentage of property taxes. General fund is highly volatile.
That's right.
Property taxes are much less volatile. So that means that whenever there's an economic problem, we get hit with deficits, deferrals, and gap funding, or whatever you want to call it. This proposition is going to be put on the ballot, or they're attempting to get enough signatures to put it on the ballot. It's being put out by an organization called Educate Our State. They've been around for quite a while. And I was proposing that as a board, we should offer our support for this initiative to be placed on the ballot because it would stabilize funding. It doesn't raise any new taxes, but it guarantees that the old percentage of property tax that it was intended to go to the schools does go to the schools, and that cities and counties would be more funded out of the general fund, essentially reversing what has happened. Paul, question.
Okay, yes, I have a couple of things. First of all, when you get to the end of it, it says, therefore be it further resolved. And I think we're missing the therefore be it resolved line.
Oh, that's
because there is no line there saying, therefore be it resolved that we support the initiative.
There is a line missing, yeah, I believe.
I think that's kind of a critical line.
Huh.
Yep, it must have been deleted in editing. We went through a little bit of editing to clarify the top, and it may have just gotten dropped, but I think
Okay, so
it'll be there in an earlier draft, and if I can quickly
Okay.
pull it up.
I think you need to get that back in here before we approve it. And then one other thing I just want to comment on this, in the supporting information that's following this, there's please find a volunteer and sign the petition, please help get this initiative on the ballot, and then a whole kind of flyer, we can fix it, help us get this initiative on the ballot. That's all campaigning, electioneering stuff that the board is forbidden to do. So it really should not be in the agenda and should be not in the minutes. We can approve the resolution, we can express support for the initiative, but we can't go beyond that and actually advocate or campaign.
As a board, right, those documents were provided as informational documents. They were, one of them was written by the president of the school board in Piedmont, and he...
Yeah, but they're not so identified.
So you're moving to pull that page 313.
312 and 313.
312 and 313, so I will second that.
Then, I mean, I feel comfortable approving the resolution as long as I can hear the...
Be it resolved.
Be it
Yeah.
resolved.
Mhm.
And then drop the last two
Yeah,
pages.
I know it's in an earlier draft, and I'm just...
I think it would be pretty simple. It would be something like, therefore, be it resolved that Albany Unified School District supports the resolution number 2013-14-12.
Okay.
Supporting the protection of locals.
Right.
Okay, that's fine. I'm good. I could...
That's all it was, yeah.
So I'll move the resolution with noting that it will be corrected.
So having been on the other side of this issue, having been a city council person and see the city's funds and the potholes being unfilled because the state wasn't very good about getting money to the city, I'm going to go ahead and approve this, but people should recognize we're making our cities and our streets and the things we provide to our community, that they provide to our community.
But, you know,
vulnerable
I mean,
as well.
you know, the bigwigs put the pressure on small cities, large cities, and school districts because there's not enough money to go around.
That's right.
And they pull from Peter to pay Paul, and, you know, it's not the school district's fault and it's not the city's fault. It's that we have to understand the politics of how money is dispersed in the state.
Yeah, I think the resolution explains that situation.
Anyway,
fairly
I'll
well.
second the motion.
Thank you.
My understanding also is that the current backfill procedure is actually providing about $6 billion a year more to cities and counties than was lost from the vehicle license fee or would have been lost to this point. So it's actually gone past just covering the loss. And so this would recover some of that. So I have a motion and a second to approve the resolution with the addition of the first. Therefore, be it resolved that we support this resolution, that we support the ballot measure. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that carries. And zipping along.
Voting for delegates.
The delegates.
We have our delegates, yes. And we choose...
4 out
is it
of
4
5.
of them? 4 out of 5. So, proposals for... Should we just run down the line and see if we agree on our selection, or...?
No, I can't remember.
Yeah, well, why don't we just vote on each one?
Unfortunately, I don't have a strong, I mean, I read them,
Yeah.
and many of them seem to have strong qualifications.
Yeah.
So I might need to support another person's stronger recommendation. Is
Well,
there-
I'll tell you how I decided. We have two incumbents who seem to be well qualified and doing a good job, as far as I know, and they're both from Pleasanton. So I thought it would be good to have the other two be from other districts.
I agree.
Exactly what I was thinking.
So who are the two incumbents?
Valerie
Those were masters.
Arkin, Jamie Yee
Yeah.
Hitzke, Ann Miller, and Nancy Thomas. I'll move those four.
Okay,
I'll second that.
excellent idea, thank you.
So
for
we
this
have one from Newark, one from Dublin, and two
Two
from
from
Pleasanton.
Pleasanton.
Okay, so all in favor
the
of, I believe the motion is Valerie Arkin, Jamie Yahinsky, Ann Miller, Nancy Thomas. All in
Yeah.
favor?
Aye.
All right, well done.
Thank you.
All right.
The calendar.
Delegate Assembly.
Oops, I closed this, I guess I want to go home.
We now have Title III Program
Oh, geez.
Improvement.
Should we move to extend? We're at
Oh, and we've just hit the 9:45.
Is this our last item?
We
or
have
no?
3 items left.
Do we really? Wow.
I'll just move to approve the District Title III program. I read it and it looks fine.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second.
I
Any
think we're-
comment?
I
Or
think
shall we-
that's a kind of a no-brainer. We're just responding to what
Okay.
we're required to respond.
We had
to.
previous
requirement.
discussion about it, and we
I-
appreciate your attention to.
I did have one typo that ought to be corrected, but as I understand it, this was something that's already been submitted, is that right?
It's already been submitted, but I have not submitted the cover page with the signatures, and there was a place for me to say, I'm submitting this as a draft, but it's still going to the board for
Okay, this is
approval.
minor, it's just on page 330, it says proximity to US Berkeley, I believe that's
Yeah,
UC
I saw that
Berkeley.
too.
It's a typo, sorry.
Good.
One my spell check did not catch.
Yeah, exactly. But we appreciate the work on it.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
ready to
So
vote.
all in favor of approving the Title III Program Improvement Plan, say aye.
Aye.
That carries unanimously. We've got a job description for Chief Business Official, which I'll let Marla introduce.
Yes, we have a proposal to add a chief business official to our job descriptions and to change the position at a significantly lower cost than the associate superintendent for the next.
I have one question, which is, Lori, did you write or read and approve this description? Okay, good
I
enough
actually
for me.
worked with Cynthia.
Oh, thank you very
Good.
much.
Well, I'll
Okay.
move we approve this.
You're right, I agree.
Well, the point is, for the public, is that we're going to be saving money, and yet this is a strong enough salary to attract a highly qualified candidate.
Does this cover all of your duties?
Yes.
So that would
So
be.
there was a motion?
I made a
I'll
motion.
second.
All in favor of approving the job description for CBO?
Aye.
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 Aye, so that's approved.
Is there one more item?
One more.
Okay.
And we have our meeting schedule for the fall.
Okay, I'll just say I did check it against Jewish holidays, and there's no conflict.
Oh,
There
good.
is one, December 16th.
Well, that's Hanukkah, that's not really major.
I can't be there. I think
We could change that one.
that's not a good night to have a meeting. I think that would be on,
It's an extra meeting.
What's that mean?
one in
Usually
December.
only have one meeting, and then we struggle trying to schedule additional meetings, so I put a couple extra ones in there. It's easier to cancel.
Oh,
Okay.
for scheduling
So
purposes.
we're having an election this year, and we'll be installing new board members possibly, and is that going to be on December 9th?
December 9th would be when we would do it.
Yeah, okay. Well,
I'm willing to meet on a Monday, but not on
Let's
Okay.
just eliminate it.
It would irritate some people in the community.
That's
we
a
could
good point.
eliminate it, or
Yeah.
we could move it to Monday, or,
If we need, well,
Well-
we can decide if we need it later on.
Yeah, I think that's the better option. To say Monday now when we doubt, we may have a hard time with
Thank
the
you.
room and so on. If we can eliminate it now, but then look later, because we don't normally have it, but we've also got an extra meeting now in January. We did run up against some challenges putting things on the agenda this year, but it may be easier next year. We don't know.
And an extra meeting in February.
I
and the
think that's
extra
good
meeting.
planning, to tell you the truth. I mean, just, it says extra, so, but I'm
always
fine, I'm
cancel.
fine with taking out the December 16th meeting and
Okay.
leaving the other extra meeting.
So I'll move the regular board meeting schedule for 2014-15 with the one adjustment.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night.
So that's approved without December 16th. And now, any board comments or superintendent comments?
Nothing for me.
Board comments?
I had some, let's see, I think they were already covered. I would just like to consider sometime in the near future that we get a status report on the concept design of Marin School. Is the contract started? And
We're just, yeah,
so
I'll give you a
I
status.
think that original design period was a couple of months, so, okay. And then, status of our LCAP meetings, are we going to get a
That'll be
report
on
on that
next,
at the next
next
meeting?
board meeting.
Good. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right,
Thank
then our
you.
meeting's adjourned.
Good night.